Well, that worked. A stubborn music computer this morning leads the way. Happy Friday as we say good morning, everybody. It is 6:07 on Friday, October 26th, 2019. We've got pretty nice weather out there. It was chilly, though. It's actually 42 right now, but it's going to get up to 65, maybe even 70 today. Welcome to Radio Westchester. We are the station at the station. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. Makes sense, right? Today, mostly cloudy. We'll level off at about 64. But again, we make his 70 with a little bit of luck. Tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 49 degrees. Our top story this morning, the NTSB reveals the cause of that 2017 Metro North train derailment, the one up in Rye. Juan Rodriguez, the new city dad whose children died in the back of his car, returns to the Bronx court today. A group meets to share concerns over the closure of Mount Vernon Hospital. The mayor weighed in with an opinion. Electronic voting begins next week. Early voting for the first time. And the Mets didn't get Joe Girardi. Nope. He signed with the Phillies. What are the Mets thinking? People wonder about it all the time. Welcome to the program. We're going to get to those news stories right now. We start out with the NTSB. This in Lohud today, a ride train derailment that injured 16 people in 2017 appears to have been caused by speeding. Shocker that. The NTSB released the report October 8th that placed blame on the engineer for failing to remember that the train was passing through a temporary speed restriction zone where the speed limit was 10 miles an hour. How fast was he going, you say? 56 miles an hour, actually 55.9. The engineer failed to tell the conductor about the temporary speed restriction, and the conductor could have reminded the engineer had he done so, at least according to the report. The NTSB noted also a lack of fully operational positive train control, which could have stopped the speeding train before it entered the speed restriction area. Pardon me, and so now we know that. This next story, there clearly can't be any winners. It's a heartbreaking story. This out of Lohud today, Jonathan Bandler wrote it. It could be another 6 weeks before the Bronx prosecutors decide whether to maintain a criminal case against Juan Rodriguez. He's the New York City dad whose 1-year-old twin died this summer when he left them in a car for 8 hours. Rodriguez was back in court yesterday for a brief appearance, but the case was adjourned until December 5. The lead prosecutor said the case has still not been presented to a grand jury, and no plea offer is on the table. That is just a tough story. If you remember, he's a 39-year-old Iraq War veteran charged with 2 counts, each of second-degree manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, and endangering the welfare of a child. He was supposed to drop them off at daycare on his way to work. He forgot they were in the car. A group of people, this is out of Mount Vernon now, a group of people met inside a church last night to share their concerns over the closure of a hospital, the hospital actually, in Mount Vernon. This in News 12 today. Montefiore, which operates Mount Vernon Hospital with 121 beds, says it plans to close its doors on North 7th Avenue. It plans to open another facility, though, less than 2 miles away on East Sanford Boulevard, but it will provide emergency and ambulatory services. It will not offer inpatient care or surgical services. In a statement, Montefiore said, quote, "Our new site puts patients first, reflects best practices in healthcare, and ensures Mount Vernon residents have high-quality care for years to come." And as you know by now, it's met with resistance. Even some people who originally liked the idea of the trauma center have changed their opinion. Now, the mayor of Mount Vernon, that is the acting mayor, or I guess he's actually mayor because he inherited the job when Mr. Thomas, so that is Mayor Richard Thomas, resigned, he did weigh in, and he said, by now you've probably heard, and this is just a couple of lines about it, that Montefiore has announced that we'll be closing the hospital. Like me, you were probably extremely disappointed and disheartened at that announcement. They've also indicated that they would be investing $41 million in a new facility. He's got a plan, though. to still get a hospital done. And we'll talk more about that later in the hour. We'll talk about his plan. Now, he's scheduled to be with us. We're still waiting for a final confirmation for our long-form interview today at 9 o'clock. It would be great to talk to him about that proposal, as we will have discussed it prior to that. And we'd like to get your opinions when we open the phone. Once again, it is 6:13. You're listening to Radio Westchester here. We are the station at the station. We are live and kicking this morning right by the new Rochelle train station. And we're looking forward to early voting next week as we take our microphones out on the platform. We'll see who, if anyone. It's been sort of a slow political season in that sense. We haven't seen any of the people running for office out on the platform. We do expect that to happen next week, but we also will be reaching out to you as you go to and from the train, the parking lot, the bus, North Avenue, wherever, about how you will vote this year. And apropos of that, for the first time, Westchester County will be using electronic poll books to replace and speed up the traditional paper check-in process during early elections. Again, that starts Monday. The device can prevent election fraud by notifying inspectors of whether a voter has already voted. And a test run begins October 26th for early elections. I guess that's tomorrow. I need to confirm that. I should know better. But I thought it started Monday, but they're going to start this tomorrow on Saturday. Baseball fans, listen up. If you're a Met fan, depending on your point of view, you may or may not be happy. This out of the Associated Press this morning. Joe Girardi has signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, and that is a fact. It has been confirmed. The Associated Press first heard rumblings yesterday, but by last night it was a done deal. Girardi was one of the most prominent candidates to fill vacant managerial spots across baseball. He led New York to its 27th World Series title, beating the Phillies in 6 games in 2009. He succeeded and replaced Joe Torre after 2007 and spent a decade in pinstripes. A good manager, and in this day and age, he's a little old-fashioned because he likes to manage and take control of the team. We are entering an era, say many experts now, where the general manager tends to travel with the team, really wants to call the shots behind the scenes, and some of them are looking for, well, puppets. Puppets. You want a puppet show, don't go to see baseball. Turn on Channel 13 or whomever still has puppet shows. It is 6:15. A 39-year-old man with a history of sex offenses has pleaded not guilty in Rockland County to new charges of improperly touching a teenage boy. This actually came out yesterday. We didn't get to this story. One Yoel Oberlander is being held in federal custody in New Jersey on accusations of violating his supervised release from prison based on his June arrest in Rockland on new charges. Oberlander was arraigned Tuesday by County Court Judge Larry Schwartz in New City on grand jury misdemeanor charges of third-degree abuse. And, wow, okay. Meanwhile, some of the history here. Oberlander was sentenced to 13 months in federal prison in July 2017 for assault with intent to commit stalking when he touched a woman's chest and harassed her on an El Al flight from Tel Aviv. This next item from Greenberg, a 51-year-old man suffered serious injuries Wednesday after a 4-vehicle collision involving a Beeline bus. 4 others, including an infant, were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. There were no injuries to the bus driver and 11 passengers. The driver, who was not hurt, drove into his Escalade with southbound. Excuse me, I've got this wrong. I made a mistake. Shoot me. The driver of the Escalade, this is the car that the bus struck, he did suffer serious injuries as he drove his Escalade southbound on Hillside Avenue, and he was hit broadside. He then continued to strike a Hyundai Elantra and a Beeline bus, yet another bus at the intersection. A parent, now this is an interesting story. A parent who has a child at a Clarkstown middle school says an extra credit assignment tried to sway student beliefs. Now, you'll want to listen into this one. We have another story that's going to scare you too, but that's a little later on. That's during the conversational part of this hour. This in News 12 today. A 4-page extra credit assignment was given to a 6th grade social studies class at Felix Festa Middle School earlier this week. The students were directed to read quotes and decide which party the speaker most likely belongs to, Democrat or Republican. One of the questions read, if you want to buy a gun, it is my constitutional right, and I should not have to wait 5 days to get it. Wow, that does seem a little slanted, doesn't it? Joe Diaz says he was alarmed when he read the question as he helped his daughter with the assignment. He says the statement was misleading and favored Democratic views. Well, much has been written about the NYPD officer who was fired because of a chokehold he put on Eric Garner several years ago, or at least was accused of put on Eric Garner, only to be fired 5 years later. Well, he has, and actually it's more than 5 years, it's 2014 now. Daniel Pantaleo's lawyer, this is out of the Associated Press, by the way, Daniel Pantaleo's lawyer, Stuart London, Pantaleo's the officer, told the New York Post the lawsuit was filed on Wednesday and argued that his termination following an administrative trial was an arbitrary and capricious decision, and he's suing to get his job back. As you know, Commissioner James O'Neill fired Pantaleo in August for using a banned chokehold on Garner, whose death was captured on a cell phone video. The Reverend Al Sharpton says, quote, Pantaleo's decision to seek his reinstatement is not only disrespectful to the commissioner and the NYPD, but also to the Garner family. Al Sharpton's done some decent things with his life in recent years. I get that in some ways. But he's so one-sided about these things that it's very troubling. Now, just to go on record, I've been on the air now 15 years, and he's banned from my programs until he apologizes for ruining the career of that prosecutor for his political and demagogic ways. And he's an interesting man, someone I really would love to get for one of our hour interviews. But until he apologizes to me, he will continue to be, even though he said some things, even when he ran for president, he didn't do a bad job. He's done some things that were noteworthy. Not this decision. I don't agree with him on that. The kid made a mistake trying to take down a man 4 times his size. I thought he might have been reprimanded, cited, but not fired. But that's just my opinion. But until Al Sharpton apologizes and acknowledges that he ruined that prosecutor's life and career in the Tawana Brawley case, he'll never be on a microphone that I sit behind. Let's take a look at the weather. The weather today, and this is a full report on the weather, is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. That's uhgc.com. It's 42 right now, going to get up to 65, they tell us. No chance of rain, but it will be cloudy. The wind out of the south-southwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy again. The temperature getting down to 49. Good sleeping weather. The wind out of the southwest, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Now tomorrow, sunshine followed by increasing clouds. The temperature 60. The wind again out of the north-northeast, this time 5 to 15. Now Sunday, here we go back to rain. And it's interesting, I was listening to some other broadcasts this morning, and all they could talk about was the rain Sunday, and they ruined today, tonight, and Saturday in everybody's mind. Yes, we'll have cloudy with periods of rain, a cloudy sky. Sunday, the high will be 64, the overnight low will be 54 degrees. And when you return to work Monday, mostly sunny skies. The high will be 65 degrees. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Our program this morning is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn. Dominic Cigars, who sponsor our picks of the week. We'll do that a little later in the 8 o'clock hour. That's the football picks of the week. And plug-in virtual reality. A couple of other sports stories, and then we could move on. Hey, the Rangers finally won a game. They looked like a hockey team last night. They defeated the Buffalo Sabres, who have been on quite the winning streak, quite a great young team, by a score of 6-2. to 2. And that is noteworthy. We have a lot to talk about, and we're going to get to it in just a moment. We do have the phones open, though, 222-3141, 222-3141. And as Brett Seigerlis said in the paper today, who the hell knew these guys? We're talking, of course, about the Rangers. As pigs flew over Broadway, the previously lifeless Rangers not only broke a 5-game winless streak, but absolutely took it to the league-leading Sabres in registering a 6-2 win. They looked like a hockey team, and they even played with a bit of an edge. Now, a couple of national stories, and then we'll talk about the Mount Vernon issue, troubling stories. It was announced today that, and this is for people who want the investigators investigated, the Justice Department is said to have shifted from an administrative review of the Russia investigation into a criminal inquiry. And many are assuming that this may be political because what with the president and the deep doo-doo he's in and the impeachment hearings, the move is likely to raise alarms that the president is using the Justice Department to go after his perceived enemies. However, there's another side to this story. It can hurt to look at how we investigate things, particularly if they wind up leading towards the impeachment of a president, number one. Number two, the individual whom they've chosen, and I prepared this story and then I left his name out, but it's not as important as who this man is in essence. He is a prosecutor from Connecticut who is highly regarded by both sides, by Republicans and Democrats. He's known to be independent. The Justice Department has gone to him before to look at things. So, but my guess is, and this now is opinion, my guess is he'll do his work, he'll come back and say, yeah, there was some irregularities, but at the end of the day, yes, they really did investigate. They really did find these contacts from Russia influencing our election. Now, understand what's going on here, and it's very similar to what's going on with the impeachment of the president. You'll notice a very fine line about words. And by that, I mean this. No one is saying now, no Republicans are trying to make the case that the president didn't establish quid pro quo, because after the some of the testimony that has gone to the committees about what took place on that call and about what took place at the embassy in Kiev, it's pretty clear that there was a quid pro quo. And it's fair to say that it's arguable whether or not that's an impeachable offense. It probably is. But again, it is, and that's the way the Constitution has left it. It is what the Congress and the Senate say it is in terms of whether or not it goes above the threshold of high crime and misdemeanors. But what the Republicans who are defending the president will do, and it is their right, is they'll attack the process. They won't, it's kind of like I used to have this anal guy work for me, very anal guy, brilliant guy, genius in a system I was building for my old company. And he used to nitpick at everything and try and explain why he didn't do something that he should have done. And in this case, it was a review, his annual review. And we were in the office 2 hours. And finally, it must have been a divine, speaking of Vince Russo's calls, divine intervention, because finally it hit me. I turned around and I looked at him, and this is what someone needs to do with some of these Republicans that are saying, let's look at the process. They need to turn around and say to him, deny that the president did it. Well, that's what I did with this guy. And he finally said, no, yeah, I did do it, but I was really concerned about the process you used to arrive at that conclusion. But that's what's really going on here. And that's the political part of this. But where the rubber meets the road, and I don't deign to know, I don't think anybody knows. I think the Founding Fathers have really put us in a tough spot, but on purpose. And I'll tell you why. And you may wonder why I opened up with the criminal inquiry into the prosecution, if you will, and the investigation into Russia interfering with our elections, because the concept is the same, the dynamic's the same. The Justice Department is looking into the process now. I don't think they're denying that the Russians interfere with the election. And but here, let's get to the sacred part of this, because both sides, the Democrats are going to pound it. It looks like they got the goods, but they're going to pound this is what the president did. The Republicans are going to say, yeah, but how did you arrive at that? But here's where the rubber meets the road, and it's taken me, and probably the rest of you too, it's taken us a while to realize what's happening. And you're about to partake in these next several months in history, because this may well be the closest we will ever come to removing a president, if in fact we do. They wanted it at the end of the day to be political. That is the Founding Fathers. They wanted at the end of the day for the Congress of the United States and the Senate to have so much damning proof, to be so certain that a president abused his powers, that they used the term high crimes and misdemeanors. And so we will be setting a precedent. But at the end of the day, they wanted it to be so difficult that unless we had an extremely compelling reason to remove a president, extremely compelling, that the people should speak. And in some ways, that's a beautiful thing. Now, you may not be a Trump fan. You may be a Trump hater. You may be a never Trumper. You may be a Trumper always, committed. But at the end of the day, the Founding Fathers knew that the best way to remove a sitting president, if it was going to happen, was by election. That's how sacred they considered the will of the people. And that is a cool thing. That is really a terrific thing. And we really need to embrace that regardless of our positions. And now, will or is it possible that we will look back one day and say, yes, the Republicans should have done it, but didn't because all they were was cynical politicians? I mean, it's possible. Or will we look back one day after the next election, because the way this is timing out, I don't think they would impeach and remove him by then anyway. I don't think they'd have enough time. Will we look back and say that people behaved despite their crazy politics? At the end of the day, the system worked, and that a president was elected or acquitted by the people? Which is why now the folks are taking the positions that they have. The Republicans clearly, and again, Mr. Barr, while he's appointed an independent guy, although they said that, one wonders if this guy doesn't say what they say, well, the president, and this is what irks me all the time. There's a whole nother level to this discussion. If this prosecutor who was looking into how the review and how the intelligence was gathered on the Russian spying, if he doesn't say what the president wants him to say, will the president then say, well, he has liberal friends. What do you want? He comes from Connecticut, or it's a hoax, or enough of that, Mr. President. Let the thing play out. But nonetheless, they'll question the process, and the Democrats will pound the table and say this was quid pro quo. And by election time, they will have hope to convince us one way or another. And it's going to be on us, since at the end of the day, and now this part is really an opinion, not that the rest of it isn't, but this is a sort of black or white opinion. I think that at the end of the day, I don't think the Republicans have enough guts to send the president away. And it might actually be a good thing, unless it's so overwhelming. And again, that's probably the way the Founding Fathers wanted it. And the Democrats will try and make it worse than it is. And so we will be the judge and the jury. Moving on now, the phones are open, 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. Now, I've got an issue. If you are one of these people that gets amped up, you're one of these folks, and I'm one of them, over the intellectual challenge and try to get your head around the transgender issue, for good or ill, and support it, there is a story in the paper today about a Texas case where a couple has divorced and the woman wants her boy to be a girl. And so she is raising him, according to the story. She is, if you will, trying to program him and even looking ahead to perhaps rearranging his body, if you will, to make him a girl. I mean, this is tough stuff. And what I'd recommend to you is go to the New York Post today and go to the Post Opinion, Playing God by Ramona Towers. The dark side of the trans movement was absent from CNN's LGBT town hall for the Democratic candidates this month, but Americans can now catch a glimpse of the underbelly in the alarming case of one James Younger, a 7-year-old boy who may soon not be a boy. This week, a Dallas, Texas jury awarded the sole custody of James to his mother, Ann Georgoulis, who claims she is a girl named Luna. She has marked her son as female on medical records, begun to socially transition him, and consulting with therapists about eventually chemically castrating him. Good God. When the Georgoulis is sued to limit the father's access to James and mandate that Younger call him Lunar, Younger fought her in court. This week he lost his case for sole custody. What the heck is going on? Look, I never thought about that. I never thought that a parent could say, well, I want this particular child to be a boy or a girl. And I'd love to hear your feedback on it. I've got to process this. I think that we have to be very careful now. Someone comes of age, or even in pre-puberty, they may know that they're gay. You know, they certainly, most gay people will tell you they knew then. But then you get into the whole world of transgender, where they break through. Is still another Rubicon that says I'm not only prefer. Let's say I'm a guy. I not only prefer men, but I am a woman, through and through and through. But a 7-year-old? 7-year-old doesn't know. And so many people during the ages of sexual development go through all kinds of things. The little boys looking at one another's privates and little girls touching each other. Whatever it is little kids do as they learn their sexuality. And I'm not trying at all to be lascivious. No parent, and someone ought to say something about it, no parent ought to be turning their kid into the sex that they prefer. Besides, and this is a stake in the ground I will put in. No weasel words, no ambivalence about it. We do not, transgender women, which is male to women, do not belong in competitive sports. When you do it, unless you play among all other transgenders, you have forfeited that right because it's not fair to women. So where are the women's rights people with that? Are they going, oh, no, well, you know, they're in our camp, the LGBT people. I get it. They should be in your camp when it comes to civil rights. They should be in your camp when it comes to equality. But they should not be imposing an unfair situation on others. And it is all about language at the end of the day. You know, I was listening, and Deepak Chopra just wrote a new book. We're going to try and get him on the show about how, you know, words are inadequate because we've constructed them. Humans have constructed them. We often are unable to really capture the right meanings of things. And that's very true. And this is one such case. And it does boil down to words. So you know what? We just need to add a modifier here. When we are filling out a card and you fill out the sex, when you were born, you should have are genetically identified as what, so that we can identify you. Except if you're an hermaphrodite, then we can't, and we need to use that. And an hermaphrodite, by the way, is someone born with two different sets of sexual equipment. It happens, and it's a real thing. Now that, later on, you can add another line on it so that one day you can identify yourself as a man or a woman when you're old enough to know, or sexually fluid, or sexually speed dating, whatever you want to do. It's your business. But a 7-year-old? All righty. Now here's something. There's all little interesting stuff that was in the paper that's worthy of conversation, or at least worthy of comment by us. It is 6:36. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, live at the New Rochelle train station. The lights are on. We're going to open up the windows in a minute. It was so early and dark before I wanted the light, and I'm in here in the light. We are supported today by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, Dominic Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And, of course, the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Now, this is hard to get your head around if you're not a geek. I mean, the people who built this studio could probably appreciate this. Brilliant people, but you ain't lived till you dealt with geeks. Brilliant geniuses, but they see everything from inside the box, not out here. All right. Google announced Wednesday that it has achieved a breakthrough in quantum computing. No, don't go to sleep. Don't turn off the radio or the computer or the phone, saying it has developed an experimental processor that took just minutes to complete a calculation. Now get this, up until this particular issue, and we're talking now about the famous Cray computer and all the supercomputers that have been developed in places like MIT and the US government, and probably the Russians and Chinese are capable of doing it, the Israelis. It would take a Cray or some computer like that 10,000 years to solve this problem. It now can do it in minutes. And the real hope for this is, if you think of the concept of determinism and what it takes to predict how genes will work or how cancer can be cured or how we can speed up at least the mathematical testing or the statistical testing or even the actuarially based, that is, how often does something happen in a given period of time based on the givens, if you will, based on profiling, don't get upset. It'll be able to figure these things out, perhaps speed up cures, speed up, by the way, for people who are really brilliant, I guess how to play cards, but speed up just about everything that we need to still figure out. I think one of the great misconceptions about life is that we are at the pinnacle of knowledge. We're only at the pinnacle of knowledge thus far. I'm always amused when I do a little bit of history, and I love to read history books, and I know I'm a geek and a dork, but deal with it. I just finished a book about Genghis Khan. And the reason I say this is I did not know, as much as I thought I was pretty knowledgeable and well educated, I did not know that they were one of the Genghis Khan and the series of Khans that left us with Mongolia and that actually in many ways built modern China, how committed they were to freedom of religion, how they were the first really to start using paper money, how they managed their economies, what they did with artisans. And I didn't realize that they had libraries and was really ignorant of this. And this is like in the 12th century, 13th century. And then you think from that period to now, we're still using paper money. We've changed a lot, but not as much as we have. In fact, we probably changed more in the last 100 years than we did in the last 2000s. My point being that we're probably still prepubescent. We probably still are only looking at, just touching barely, where we'll be, say, in 500 or another 1,000 years if we don't blow ourselves up. It's very interesting to think about. My guess is we'll live a lot longer, maybe 125, 150. Remember, if we go back to that period in time, if someone lived to 40, it was a big deal, or even 35. And then even our parents, or rather probably our grandparents, were very happy to make it to 65 or 70. And now we're looking, most of us, at 80. And our grandchildren, my grandson and my granddaughter, are probably going to live past 100, is about my guess. And God knows what lies ahead. God knows. And we'll ask Dr. Sternberg later on about it. God knows what new developments lay ahead. We can replace a hip. We can replace a shoulder. We replace knees. We have stents. And there's almost no doubt that they'll be able to develop organs. And so, again, within 1,000 years, we'll probably be able to replace everything, except, this is just my take, and it goes to even the religious conversations that we've had with Vince on this station in the last couple of weeks. No way they give you a new brain, but there's no way, at least in my view, that I could see now, to replace that mind-body thing that makes us who we are, or even that knowledge that we have. Is there a way, until we figure out how the brain stores information? But see, once we can do that, then it's a whole other slippery slope, because then you could, if you can transfer it into a human brain, why can't you just take a human brain and put it in a machine, and maybe you'll have a real robot? Maybe 5,000 years from now, when you're getting ready to die, they'll say, not to worry, we've built you a whole new body. We have genetically reproduced it, and now we are going to reprogram a fresh brain for you. Yeah, we reprogrammed it. We have taken you, and we have, in effect, made a clone. And now we're going to give you your brain back, so we'll live 500 years. Unless, of course, people are still running around with assault weapons, and yes, that's a dig, and decide to shoot you anyway. And my guess is the meaning of life will go away if we live forever. because one of the great appreciations of life is that it is short and that it will end. But the question is, how short? Speaking of, the other story we wanted to talk about, 2 more minutes to break. You probably read about this and maybe passed through it and say, oh boy, but this came out of the Netherlands. Rather Belgium, excuse me. Oh, someone rung the phone and I didn't answer it. My apologies. Let's go to the videotape. I heard it. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Good morning. There's one little problem with your theory about your grandkids are going to be able to live to 121.
Go ahead.
125.
Go ahead.
We're all going to be dead in 10 years from cow farts.
Oh, I forgot about that. Moo, perp, moo. How are you, Anthony? No, it's really interesting stuff. What do you think of this? What do you think of this woman trying to make her kid a girl? Why? How can they possibly let this happen, Anthony? Why don't they just shoot me now?
Bob, I'm not, if I go there, I'm going to be called the sexist, the racist, and everything else. This world has lost its way. It's absolutely lost its way. The worst part is, this is that the case you're talking about is stemmed from a divorce case.
Yes. So
is it about the child, or is it about the parents being children?
It's about the parents. It's about the parents, and I don't see a parent shouldn't have the right to mutilate a child.
Let me ask you this question, Bob:
Yes,
is it any different? Is it any different than your young teenage daughter, maybe in middle school or just beginning high school, being pregnant, going to the nurse's office, and then they don't have to contact you as a parent?
Oh, I've always agreed with you on this. Yes, if you go to the nurse's office, you should tell your parent. Your parent has, in terms of your health and your well-being, your parents has a responsibility, and it should be passed to them. Absolutely.
I mean, think about the fact that if your daughter banged her head and had a lump on her head, they would be mandated to call you by law.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes. No.
Yet if she went, and whatever, she had some kind of complication or early sickness or whatever, they don't have to call you. Think about that.
It is amazing. It really is. You know what? It seems that the world has lost its balance, and or at least we have in this country right now. And a lot of it is that different sides, or even now shades of political or moral opinion, people fix their positions. They don't think through. They don't weigh. Like someone like yourself has conservative opinions and liberal opinions, thoughts about gay people, but they go on the case by case basis, and we got to stop.
Every individual has the right to be what he or she wants to be.
Yep, like you're a miserable human being.
At 7 years old, there's no way they could possibly know what they want to be.
Thank you. So I'm glad you saw that story too, because it really bothered me. Did you happen to see this other story about the Paralympian who took her own life because she was in such agonizing pain she just couldn't do it anymore?
No, I didn't.
It really, really interesting. She had such a rare spinal disease, and she lived with it. In fact, she became a Paralympian. What she did was to almost as a distraction, she became like an Olympic runner or whatever the case may be. But finally, she lives in a country where assisted suicide is allowed, and it was funny. She got the approval but didn't do it right away. She said the thing is to have the freedom to know that I could end the pain allowed me to live with it longer. I found that to be interesting. What do you say about that?
Well, as you know, I'm a chronic pain sufferer.
I know.
And on one of your previous shows, where the doctor had a weekly show.
That'll be coming back soon.
He banged the drum ferociously about the opioid epidemic, and he's never prescribed. And if you remember one show, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I called up and I challenged him. And I said to him, Doc, can you tell me that there's not a legitimate need for these drugs? And what happened? Next week when he came on, he had a monologue to start the show. Mm-hmm. That said, there is a legitimate use for these drugs.
Of course there is.
So that's the point here. Every time something happens, and the opioid epidemic is horrendous. I'm not taking one stitch away from it. Okay, mm-hmm. But anytime something happens, we as a society tend to overreact and throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely. And you know where we do that too? And for a while it got better, but now I'm worried, particularly because of the opioid crisis, that it'll get worse. People have a right to die without being in full-blown terror and pain. I mean, I would take, this is an extreme case, and I don't take me literally, but if for someone to have a peaceful death, they had to go out and shoot them up with heroin, why not?
Listen, I've seen many people suffer.
Me too.
Their last few breaths on this earth, whether it be from cancer or whatever. As I told you long before, my father passed away at 39 years old.
Yes.
So you want to call it mercy, you want to call it individuals' right to choose, call it whatever you want. At some point, just like I said, you have the right to choose who you're going to be or what you want to be when you're old enough to make that decision. If you're old enough to make that decision, you're old enough to make the decision, hey, this is this is where I want it all to end.
Absolutely. And but again, people and you, I know you're a religious person in your soul. A lot of religious people though think that God doesn't want that. How they know that amazes me.
Well, I don't say I'm a religious person. I say I try to live my life like a Christian.
Yes.
But I do have to correct you on one thing, though.
Please do. That's why we're here.
With your little tirade this morning.
I had a few of them.
When it comes to Trump, we talk about quid pro quo. Let's go back to what happened with the Bidens. Okay.
Sure.
There was an investigation,
mm-hmm.
and the vice president went over there and said, "I want it stopped, and
mm-hmm.
if you don't stop it, I will withhold your aid."
Mm-hmm.
So there's a quid pro quo explicitly. Now, the investigator was removed, and the investigation just stopped.
Why do so many, and we get into this, they say that that the fact that it was quid pro quo was debunked, but don't you think
it was debunked because the powers that be debunked it. That doesn't mean it was debunked. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And as you said, everything is political.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so my point is, if the president now asked to reopen that investigation, why is it a quid pro quo?
Because the understanding was, and even if Biden did what you say, he should be investigated and he should.
No,
be
Bob.
punished.
Wait a minute. No, don't see. This is where I get.
Don't reach through the microphone. You got my throat.
Don't say if Biden did. There is video. I sent it to you.
Oh, okay.
Those are his words.
No, but
he said, if you don't think I have the power to stop your aid, call the president.
Anthony, fine. I'll accept what you're saying. I framed the question thus. So then they should prosecute him. They should investigate him. I have no problem with that. I really don't. I'm very consistent on this level. But what I'm saying to you is certainly there was quid pro quo, and we'll say it in both cases. What the Congress is going to have to decide is whether or not it was a high crime and misdemeanor. And I've waited on this already. Clearly, there was quid pro quo.
This is where we differ, because while I don't doubt, and I'm not going to, make it sound like I'm, being stupid here, there's no doubt that an investigation that finds that Biden did something wrong would definitely benefit the president. He didn't, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
He's opening an investigation that was stopped, okay, at the, quote, as you like to say, behest of Vice President Biden.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm accepting everything that you say, but I think there's a larger question here. We need to accept that there was quid pro quo. The question is that really an impeachable offense?
You also, what else you have to accept?
What?
That situation goes on every day amongst all the world leaders.
I assume that.
To hold one up to the light, so to speak, okay, is like pissing in the ocean.
That's true. However, and I almost hate to say this because I agree with what you're saying, the basic fact of it. But, it's like when everybody knows that guy across the street there, he's a made guy and he's probably whacked people, but he only whacks other mobsters and they do it all the time. But if he gets caught and they got the goods, it's another issue. We have to decide, and I think it will be the Senate's job to decide whether this is an impeachable offense. It's probably not, by the way.
Okay, but then we go back to what I said a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
If he got caught, then you have to catch everyone that did what he did.
I know.
Once you set the standard, which includes
now this
Vice President
is
Biden.
where I have to correct you, is that if again it presupposes that you catch them. You can't say you catch everyone. You can't possibly catch everyone. You can only do your due diligence and catch those people you can catch. I mean, just logic.
But my point is, once you set the standard, you have to live by
yes,
it. So
absolutely.
now you have to go back
Absolutely.
and take care of Biden.
Absolutely. Well,
You know me. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on.
I know that.
My biggest thing is consistency.
And I'm looking for the same thing. And that's why I get upset with people. And Andy Spano and I have gone around on this, and Jeannie Zaino as well, because they'll say, yeah, but then you get, again, this is all based on the assumption that the president does something that's truly impeachable, and not only impeachable, but would mandate, that require he be removed from office.
Well, now that you mentioned Spano, his interview the other day was great with you.
Oh,
he's off the rails.
He's
totally off the rails.
He's gotten funny, though, at least. He's
trying to be funny, but what he said about the Republicans, so absolutely bald-faced partisan was unreal.
I think
it's okay for the Democrats to do what the Republicans did.
He probably admit to this, but here's the beef I've had with them, which is they'll say, yeah, and they walk right back into what I call the cynical trap. And I like Andy very much, as you can tell. But here's the cynical trap. Yeah, but then you get Pence. My answer is I would rather have Pence and even, God forbid, Ocasio, who played by the rules, than any president I agreed with that broke the rules. And
Ocasio played by the rules?
No, I was trying to use an extreme case to make my point. I would hate her to be in that position, but if she played by the rules, I'd have to accept what she did. That is what America is. That's what the flag's about. So.
Yeah, but as I pointed out to you before, Ocasio tried to storm the speakers.
Oh yeah, don't even start. Yeah,
the only trouble is she had the wrong building. She couldn't figure out where the speaker's office was.
That is, there was something that Andy did say that was pretty funny, and I didn't know, and it shows the hypocrisy of these men and women. When some of the men that stormed that room were actually had been in it.
Yeah. But Bob, people lose the point there. Yeah. Okay, they were in the room, absolutely, but they were basically censured.
Well, yeah, no, I understand that. But
so they might as well not have been in the room.
No, I understand that, but still, if it's supposed to be private, it's probably private. But again, it's politics. Look, I got to get a wrap on this. Wait, I got one more story.
You got it.
Wait. Dad, never mind. He left. I wanted to ask him about something else. Grumpy. All right, let's see where the heck we are. This is good. 914. 222-3141, 222-31. I know the story, and I got it all in there with it. Thank you for the call, Anthony, and I appreciate it very much. I wanted to go over the lineup, but this is real stuff, folks. I'm really here, you're there, and I got all these notes. I got to buy a bigger easel. We've rearranged the studio so many times. My big easel no longer fits on this more elegant table, so in fact, can I be upset with you? I won't say where because I want to give them another chance. Plus, a lot of it has to do, and this will probably get Anthony to call again, and he'd be right to. I did go last night to Staples. I won't say where because I don't want to throw them under the bus yet, because I needed a larger easel, and I needed for our printer this can't make it up. I needed toner for our printer here at the radio station. Well. This was a huge staple. There were about, at the time, 35 customers in. And they only had 1.5 employees there. And so I asked the girl behind the counter, I said, what's wrong? She said, everybody called in sick today. The manager's in the back dealing with something. She can be out here half the time. What are companies doing? We have the richest country on earth, all right, but we have this disparity between the very rich and the rest of us. Well, the reason that these people call in, when you treat people badly, when you pay them the minimum wage, when you treat them like a commodity, and I'm talking about retail now, which I actually liked retail work when I did it. they don't feel that they have an obligation. And plus, we don't give them that culture. They have learned through what's gone on with their parents that loyalty to a company means nothing. They have no loyalty to you nor you to them. And so a lot of the people that they hire, I got to sneeze again, this happens. This is live, by the way. You couldn't hear it because I turned you off. Anyway, a lot of it has to do with they're hiring people that don't see the connection between their job and service. And that has changed. You know, I know that every generation says, in my generation. Well, you know what? I will say this and put a stake in the ground. In my generation, when someone was paying you, and I will do this in my time, particularly Wall Street, places like that, we actually took pride in going to work sick if something important was going on. We actually took pride if there was a 4-foot snowstorm. We don't have them anymore. Of figuring out a way to get to work, walk to work. In fact, one of the reasons that I got a radio job in midlife was my attitude that I took to the radio. There's 2 shows in my life that weren't planned to be missed. One was when I broke my ribs, and one was my very first week on the air when I got food poisoning. Figure that. But my point is that last night at such an August store as Staples, imagine, I could not get any service. They didn't have these because they didn't stock them. They didn't have my, we're going to go to the phone. They didn't have my my toner either. Good morning, you're on Radio Westchester. Did I say Radio Westchester? You're on Radio Westchester? Hello?
Good morning, Bob. This is Martha.
Hi, Martha. You called in early. This is terrific. I love it. In fact, Martha, you stay right there. Don't you go anywhere, and I'll tell you why. I was literally, while I was complaining about Staples, I'm going to go over the lineup for today, which I put underneath a pile of different things. So stay right there, okay? That's Martha Lopez on the phone, and when we come out of break in about a minute, we were going to go to Martha Lopez, and she is our first scheduled guest of the day. Martha Lopez is running in District 1, as you know, for the position of, so many thoughts go through my little brain here, for city council here in New Rochelle. That's District 1 over in the west, and she's running against Lou Trangucci, the incumbent Republican. At 7:35, we're going to talk with a sports guy, Steve Callis, who has a sports business here in town. Very interested in finding out what he does. Janelle Albritton is with us at 7:50 from the Mount Vernon Post, also now the Westchester Post. Andrea Smith, a tech reporter. There's a lot of new stuff coming out, and I can't imagine that there's anything that I don't have here in the spaceship of a studio. Dr. Victor Sternberg, the host, the longtime host on several radio stations of Politics and Your Health, is with us at 8:35. And then at 9:05, although for reasons that remain unclear, we've had a hard time nailing him down this time, and that's not like Mr. Wallace, Mayor Wallace, but we've had a hard time nailing him down. He's scheduled to be with us at 9:05, but we did not get a second confirm. So let's do a little bit of a reset, and we'll be right back. This is Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. Martha Lopez is up next. We have returned. It is 7:01. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. We are live from the New Rochelle train station. We are the radio station at the station. We're supported today by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. It's also brought to you, these programs, by Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic Cigars, who will sponsor this morning's Picks of the Week. Jake Schaefer will be along in a little while. Now we go to the weather, and the weather is sponsored exclusively by our friends at United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It's 43. It's been chilly this morning. Needed a jacket. I didn't wear one because I thought it would be warmer, but it's going to be warmer. No chance of rain today, getting up to the mid-60s. It may even kiss 70. Mostly cloudy, though, throughout the day. Tonight, mostly cloudy. Temperatures getting down to 49. Saturday, sunshine. That's tomorrow, followed by increasing clouds. The temperature will be 60 degrees. And into Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high will be 64. And once again, this hour, Martha Lopez, Steve Callis, and Janelle Albritton will be along. And some of the stories we're looking at for you this morning, meetings are coming together and opinions being weighed in on the loss of the hospital or the possible loss of the hospital in Mount Vernon. And it's being replaced by a trauma facility, $42 million trauma facility, but no beds, no long-term care there. And Juan Rodriguez, the new city dad, he returns to the Bronx court, or returned actually yesterday. It was postponed. He is the man who left his two children in the car when he went to work. He was supposed to drop them off at daycare, forgot them, and they died from heat exhaustion in the car. He's charged with manslaughter, but people are really trying to figure out what to do in this case. And we remind you, starting tomorrow, early voting begins. And lastly, Joe Girardi. I'm sorry, Met fans. Joe Girardi is not, I repeat, Joe Girardi is not going to be the manager of the New York Mets. He will now, though, be the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. He signed a 3-year contract. And yes, I'll weigh in. Maybe it's the right thing. I don't know the management of baseball as well as perhaps I should. Hockey, yes. And that is that some of the teams, and it looks like the Mets are among them, they want a lapdog for a manager so that the general manager can run the team using the manager by proxy. And they even started traveling regularly with the teams now where that is the case. Maybe that's the way baseball is going. Maybe that's the way it should go. I don't know. It's coming up on 7:04, and it is time, 7:05 now. Perfect timing. Martha Lopez, she's been with us a couple of times before. She has been involved in nonprofits her whole life, now works for the county, is a real example of someone who made a life here, comes from the West End of New Rochelle. She's running in the race for District 1 City Council person. Please welcome Martha Lopez. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Well, it's always good to hear from you. Well, we're coming down to the short strokes, as they say. Tomorrow, early voting begins all through next week. And then, of course, in the following week, the moment of truth comes. I got your card in the mail. How is the campaign going, Martha? And then I want you to give people, as we get closer, an overview of who you are. We've got plenty of time to do it. First, how is the campaign going? What have you been doing with your time to get elected?
Well, let me tell you, it's going very, very well. We're out there meeting people, talking to people, visiting businesses, getting ready for tomorrow. As I hear, people being very excited about voting, doing early voting makes me very happy. This is, as you mentioned before, this is the first time that this is happening in the state of New York, and we are excited. There is great energy out there.
There is. Now, are you comfortable that you get people out to vote?
I certainly am. There are a lot of new voters, young people who are energized, who are looking forward to going and voting.
Well, good. You mentioned young people. Are you able to get them involved? Are you able to get young people energized? I know they're energized in the schools and the college campuses, but sometimes they don't go out and vote. Do they know to get registered? Are they ready to do this?
We actually, did a campaign to register people, and not only did we register young voters, but we also register many, new citizens, which is really exciting. And as you know, locally, many times people do not come out to vote. However, and more in this district, in District 1, it has been, historically always a very low, turn up. And so we are looking forward to increasing those numbers this time.
Martha, when you first came on with us, and it was several months ago, we did our version of early voting by having early candidate visits. And you talked about, and it resonated with me for a long time. You gave a very balanced view of, and a very fresh view, because like my grandparents came to America a while back, but a very balanced view of what it's like to be an immigrant or the daughter of immigrants and build a life here and the best of it. I'd like you to go through that again for voters.
Well, let me tell you, as an immigrant myself and seeing my parents having 2, 3 jobs and making ends meet, many times it was very difficult to just, go and, know more about the government. Not that it was difficult about learning about the government. They knew that the government was there, for them. However, to be involved in the voting system, many times immigrants do not trust, government because in our country it's a little bit different. Government here really provides so many different services. And back home, people tend to not really, connect with the government. So, becoming a citizen, being part of, the mainstream, there always some distrust, right? And so my job has always been that bridge that makes the connection between the programs and services that are being offered and the community. So, connecting both is something that is extremely important. And what I see now as I to people, as I tell them that they will have a voice in government, I'm running to represent and to be a voice for the entire district.
Hey, Martha, if I may, excuse me for interrupting you. Are you talking into the phone or are you using the speaker? Because we're getting a little bit of an echo.
Oh, I'm using the speaker.
Yeah, can you pick up the headset for us, the regular handset? It'll come through a little easier.
Yeah, let me see.
I want people to hear you more clearly.
Can you hear me clear?
Yes, there's a little bit of a crackle, but we can live with the crackle. Again, Martha Lopez, running for District 1 City Council here in New Rochelle, talking about the services of America. But when when did you come to this country?
I came in June of 1973.
Okay, and why don't you tell people, again, I just want them to get the full flavor of you. We know you use the services, but you started a life here and you pursued education and other things. Tell people about that.
Well, just like any other immigrant, my parents came here with a dream to, to work hard and to make sure that their children were going to make a better life. So I was the recipient of their dream. I came here. My parents loved being here, and they told me, this community is giving you something very special. So when you are able to give back, you do that. At the age of 18, I was volunteering, and I went to the College of New Rochelle, and, looking through my papers the other day, I came upon an article that was written about me giving back to the community. But it was my parents who said, you work hard, you give back, and you do everything possible to make this country a better place for you to live in. And that has been my story from the past, for the past 40 years.
Well, you moved on from that. You went further to graduate school. What else did you do?
Well, so I finished my college, and yes, I went on to Columbia University, and, I have a master's in social work. I have worked with different, doing different things upon, throughout my life, like housing. I was the assistant director for a housing agency for 18 years. So I bring, that experience about, related to affordable housing. I am the founder of 2 not-for-profit agencies. One is a latchkey program that continues to be very much alive, and it was, after school program, and this is going back. This is almost 40 years. I cannot believe that this is almost, that it happened almost 40 years ago, because I understood how hard it was for parents, when they were holding jobs and they didn't have an after-school program, and we didn't want kids to go home and, just be a latchkey kid. I am also the founder of, an immigrant center, which is the Community Resource Center in Marrone. And again, we did it because we understood with many other individuals how important it was for immigrants to integrate into the community. So that agency, continues to be very much alive, and it makes me very, very proud.
If I may, you mentioned something there that's very important. And again, our guest is Martha Lopez. She's running for District 1 here in New Rochelle. She's running for City Council. You mentioned integrate. A lot of people, and these are people that have, some people have problems with immigration, saying that folks don't integrate, don't assimilate. It's possible to keep your culture and assimilate and integrate, isn't it?
Of course. Listen, I am very proud that I am a Latina, but I'm also very proud that I am an American. And you know what? I love to celebrate every different culture. When it's St. Patrick's Day, we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Or, when, the Italian community has also, the Italian Heritage Month, we celebrate, and so on. We, in this community, it is important for all of us to celebrate every other people, every other person's, ethnicity.
Now, you went on, you ran these nonprofits, you did that, but you also work in government. What do you do now? Tell people what you do now.
I work for the county government, and I run the MWBE program, which is Minority Business Enterprise Program, and I also work with the Immigrant and Community Affairs Department.
Okay. So how long have you been with the county?
I have been with the county almost 2 years.
Okay, 3 years.
I work with George Latimer.
Okay, yes. He's, of course, folks, the county executive. All right, let's talk about, and we'll get to what you want to do when you're elected. Let's talk about your neighborhood, the West End. Famously, it was once the hub for the Italian-American community, and still there are many Italians living there. It was the hub when Italians immigrated to this country. That's where they immigrated, and they became a force in this city. Many of the mayors moved on to senior roles in county government, et cetera, businessmen and women. And now it's evolved, I think it's fair to say, into a largely Latino place. But it's much like that, much like the Italian neighborhood that it replaced. There are businesses, there are lots of homeowners. What's the neighborhood like, and what are the biggest concerns there?
Well, like you said, the West End has been the home of many immigrants coming, right? And so we are the last immigrant group arriving at the West End. For the past 40, 50 years, that has been the home of many Latinos. And yes, 1/3 of the population in Rochelle is Latino. And there are many different issues with, that our community faces. And that is, dealing with, integrating, like you said. But something so important that we have to acknowledge is that the businesses that have been brought to the West End, you can have Mexican food, Ecuadorian food, Peruvian food, Colombian food, and Indian food, etc. And these businesses really are giving so much to the community. There was a time when New Rochelle looked like a gold city, right?
Yes.
So these businesses have revitalized, the community. They have brought, so much, to our community that now is exciting. We see people coming in and, going to all of these businesses to invest. They have invested, and by investing, we benefit, the city benefits completely because, there's more money coming in.
Yes. Now, I'm going to admit to something. There is, you probably know where it is on Washington Street, Washington Avenue. There's that candy store That guy's got more
Oh
different
yes,
kinds of
Candyland.
candies, and from penny candies to buy the whole. There is a candy. Maybe you can tell me about this as I learn more about the Latino neighborhood where I am. There is, it's in a blue package, and it's got marshmallow, raspberry, and chocolate. And what I do is I buy a whole box of those and put them in the freezer. Oh my
Well,
God!
let me tell you, I don't remember that candy
It's like Blue Bloobs
specifically,
or
but
something. I forget the name of it, but they're really very
I
good.
have to go by. I have to go by there, but I do go to that store because all of the candy is really delicious.
Yeah,
And
stop. Yeah, I know. I
you know,
know.
and so this is what is so special about our community. All of these businesses are important to us. They are important to us because you know what they are investing in our communities. I go to Sacones all the time also and have
Sure.
the best delicious,
The pizza joint.
pizzas and
Yeah.
pastas,
Uh-huh.
and I just love all the food as well. So I go and I am always out there visiting every business that is there, and I am so lucky that this is the backyard. This is my backyard.
You know what I like about it too? If I grew up in Brooklyn, and in the city, you could always find, and we called them bodegas or grocery stores. You could always find one open late at night. Like if you need a loaf of bread or something, and the neighborhood's getting that feel to it too. If you need something and you got to run out, or maybe the baby's sick and you need to go get some quick aspirin, you can get it. You can go out and get it.
Absolutely. And
Uh,
you know what? Let me tell you, when it snows and every other store is closed, I know that I can just walk across the park
yeah.
and go and get my tortillas and get my meat and get my cheese and get anything that I need.
I try not to talk too much about food. Remember, I get up on unholy hours. It's almost lunchtime here. And of course, it's lunchtime here at Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. We are talking with Martha Lopez. She's running for the district run city council position here in New Rochelle. She's the Democrat. We're talking a little bit about the neighborhood because I know it pretty well. So that part was easy. But what do you want to do? What are your constituents now telling you that they need? What can you do for that neighborhood? And not just the Latinas. You have a large Italian population. You have other
Everyone,
people there.
yes.
What does your neighborhood need, and what will you fight for?
Well, first, let me tell you that, yes, I want to represent all of the people who are already here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we need, what the neighborhood tells me that is needed is, there's parking concerns, safety, traffic concerns. This is a top priority because, like I said, I like to go and, to the West End, but there's never any parking. So that is a top priority. Safety, parking. We want to communicate with the community. We want to hold meetings so that they tell us, okay, Martha, this is what we need you to do. You are going to be there. This is what, you are our voice. So we want that community input. And so far, that is what, not only do I see that, but that's what people are telling me. We need affordable housing. We need, more parking. We are concerned that, there's no safety, all of those issues.
Well, say more about safety. Does the neighborhood have problems? I mean, as you look at the neighborhood, I know they fixed up the park up. Feeney Park is beautiful now. You've got a bunch of issues there. Do you have a safety issue? Do you feel that you have to get more police presence?
Well, that is something that people have said to me. You know what? We are concerned that many times, nothing has really happened, that is of concern, but yet parents are concerned, especially, with kids. They want to make sure that there is no gang involvement, that there are no drugs going on, and these are issues. These are very concrete issues. I talked, for example, I was down on Union Avenue, and parents were saying, listen, our kids walk here every day. We want to make sure that, that they are safe. And so, and what is so great, and, having dialogues with the police, I think is a really wonderful idea. And I have gone to a couple of, community forums, that were put by not-for-profit agencies where they invite the police and they come and they talk and they tell them what their issues are, and that has been wonderful. So we are very grateful to our not-for-profit agencies, to our Boys and Girls Club that are providing those services.
We're talking with Martha Lopez. She's running for District 1 City Council here in New Rochelle. If you get elected, what's the first thing you will do?
First, I want people to know that I will be their voice, and I'm going to be holding monthly forums, office hours. I want them to know that I am very accessible, that they can come and talk to me. But by having these office hours, by having, community forums, they will know that I am there, that I am their voice. That is the first thing that I'm going to do.
Okay.
We want to give power to the people.
Let's put a bow on it. When I say put a bow on it, I want you to take a moment to think about this. The people will start voting tomorrow, so some people will be in the booth or have a form in front of them or a machine in front of them, and they will have a choice. You, Lou Trangucci, who is a Republican, the incumbent. Why should they vote for you, Martha Lopez?
Okay, I think that they should vote for me because I'm going to be there working for everyone, making sure that our taxpayers, our seniors, our children, our veterans, our merchants, our small businesses know that government works for them. I'm going to be the voice for everyone who lives in this community and the entire community. I am a strong and independent voice, and that's what I want them to know. I want them to know that I support, community, street and road safety and traffic concerns, and this is a top priority for me because this is what they have told me. I want them to know that that I'm a person that gives their heart to the community that has been out there, and that I bring that experience. I want them to know that I care about all of the issues because I have lived through, for the past 40 years with the same issues as any other person who wants to move up the ladder.
Well, I'd like you to do something else, if you would, please. We have people listening to this program who are still learning English, whose original tongue is Spanish. If you would once again tell people when they go out to vote tomorrow why they should choose you, please feel free to tell them in Spanish.
¿En Spanish?
Yes.
Please. Me encantaría tener el apoyo de la comunidad latina. Es muy importante salir a votar. Nuestro voto cuenta, pero no cuenta si no salimos a votar. Por favor, les pido de corazón que me puedan apoyar. Quiero representarlos de la mejor manera posible y espero contar con su apoyo. Muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you the very best of luck. We probably will have one more chit-chat before the election. Martha Lopez, she is from the West End, of the West End. She wants to represent District 1. She's the Democratic nominee for your vote. She's running against Lou Trangucci. He's the incumbent. He's been in office some 12 years now. And just for the record, we invited him on yesterday. He did not get back to us, or I guess it was the day before. I can't remember, but he was on last week. We will invite him on again as well. Martha Lopez, the very best of luck to you, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and please go out and vote early.
And you can start tomorrow. Vote early, but don't vote often. It'll be against the law. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Martha
Have a nice
Lopez.
weekend.
Thank you. It
Bye-bye.
is 7:26. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk with the sports guy, Steve Callis. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. I got to open some windows. Did you miss me? We are back. This is Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone here. We are live at the train station here in New Rochelle. We're here each and every weekday. This show from 6 to 10, and we've already started the assemblage and the recordings of other shows and podcasts that we will bring to you soon. It is Friday, October 25th, and we expect to be joined by our next two guests momentarily. We welcome you to the program. We welcome you to Radio Westchester. And if you're on your way to work or on your way from work and are at the train station, you want to stop in and say hello. And instead of just calling in, you can visit in, as it were. And let's catch up on the weather and a few other things. But right now, before we do that, I mentioned to you that we would look at what the mayor's, this is the mayor of Mount Vernon, what his position was and is on the emerging debate over the hospital. He said, our seniors, this is Mayor Andre Wallace, who may or may not be with us today. We've again reached out to his people. They tentatively booked him, but they have not confirmed. Our seniors and residents need to know, Andre Wallace says, that they can stay in Mount Vernon and have access to first-class medical treatment. Our young mothers-to-be need to know that they don't have to leave their city to have a baby or get treatment after births. Our residents who live with dialysis requirements need to know they have a place locally to go. Those seniors who need long-term adult care shouldn't have to abandon their city to get it. Those who need mental health services need it in their neighborhood, not in New Rochelle. For all these folks, access to care is being denied, even today. We need to do better. Now, here's the issue. We're going to open the phone about that. And then Jake is here, and he's got his picks. He's scribbling them. He's worried. He may do another jet catastrophe. But at any rate, this needs to be said, and I've said it to people who've come on. The larger question here is how much is civic pride versus how much would really work? And this is a bed that all of Westchester and parts of New Jersey, by the way, have made for themselves. Every town wants their own police force, their own fire department, their own set of judges, their own court system, their own hospital, their own emergency room. Now, I'm not challenging it to say that they don't need one in Mount Vernon because they have a very dense population. However, I was coming over on Lincoln today, Lincoln Avenue, and in the process of 5 blocks, I drove through New Rochelle, Pelham, and Mount Vernon. If we were to strip off the labels of those cities, do we really need, and this is a question, this is not meant to be leading, if there are people living in Mount Vernon for whom a hospital in New Rochelle is closer. There are people living in Mount Vernon for whom a hospital in the Bronx or Yonkers, or I don't even think there is one in Pelham, is closer. So how much is civic pride? How much is politics? I'm not really sure, and I try and listen to the experts on it. If they were to build a state-of-the-art facility, if they continued to make improvements to Montefiore, formerly Soundshire here in New Rochelle, would that work? And to me, that's always been the larger question. So be that as it may. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to open up the telephones on that issue. We have a no-show, and that happens in this business. Believe me, we come plenty prepared to deal with our no-show. So, but we do want, can we get to you early, Mr. Schaefer?
Sure.
You got your packs? Well, get ready, because we need to tell people what's coming up. And what is coming up every week now, we have, Jake comes on, and he tells us why. He tells us why he is going to make 3 picks. So we have to do this sort of officially. So let's do this. Well, just wait. You have 4 today. Just wait. We didn't put you on yet. We have other stuff to do. All right, we put on some music for it. Welcome to Jake's Picks of the Day. This week's football picks are brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road, Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And with that, we introduce to you. Now, get out your newspapers, get out your, betting lines. Go on your computer if you're a football gambler, or even if you just like to pick them, you're in that pool. Jake thinks he knows a lot, but he's got a good record. Jake, what's your record right now in the last 2 weeks?
4-1 on the year.
4-1, but the one he lost, the Christians had a better shot. The people on the Titanic had a better shot.
Should have never trusted those gutless Jets.
Now they're gutless Jets, huh?
Gutless Jets.
All right, now you have 4 picks. And now what we want are A, the picks, 2, the spread, and B, and we love this part, folks, your rationale.
4-1 on the year. Again, the Jets,
really
let us down.
4-1 on the year. All right.
So let's start there. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars giving 6.5 over those despicable Jets in Jacksonville.
Wait a minute. What's the official spread?
6.5.
6.5. The Jackson's favored. And you're going to take them with the favorite. You're going to take the Jets again?
No, Jaguars.
Oh, you're going to give 6.5.
Yeah,
okay. Because we're very close to Montefiore. I can run you over there right now, and you can get help. All right, versus the Jets. That's pick number 1. Pick number 2.
This 10.5 points seems a little bit high, especially if Drew Brees is not playing.
Why is he not playing?
He's got a bad thumb. He's been out for, I think this will be his 6th week out. He injured it.
Okay, who's he play for? Remember, I don't
Saints,
know.
New Orleans
that's
Saints.
Right, the New Orleans Saints. So what's the spread? Who are they playing?
They are playing the Arizona Cardinals in New Orleans, but no Drew Brees. It's 10.5. We saw the Cardinals. Favored? The Saints are favored by 10.5.
I go with the Cardinals.
Yeah, we saw the Cardinals play the Giants very hard. They're a very scrappy young squad, and I like that 10.5 points. So give me the Cardinals. They're not going to win,
especially if they don't have Drew Brees.
Yeah, I think Arizona will play them tough, but it is in New Orleans.
Okay. I get it. No, I get it. All right, pick 4.
Season on the line for the Eagles, and I'm not a Bills believer.
Wait. That's not what Eagles make. Oh, no, they go, wow.
Eagles? I'm not sure.
I don't. That's better. I got to make it more deep throat. They're tough Eagles. Rough.
We got to make that a clip, that noise you just made.
Rough. I know. I don't know how to do bird noises. I can do beaks, but listen. All right, go ahead.
All right.
I try. Go ahead.
Season on the line for the Eagles. They lose this week. I think it's over. Not a Bills believer. It is in Buffalo, though, and the Eagles are getting 1.5. So give me the Eagles in Buffalo.
Oh, you're going to take the Eagles?
Yes, they're underdogs 1.5.
Wow. So you're going to give away 1.5?
No, I get 1.5.
Oh, you get 1.5?
The Eagles are underdogs, yeah.
Wow. I should call Chuck Strom. He's the city manager here in New Rochelle. He's the biggest Eagle. I mean, he grows feathers. He's such a big Eagles fan.
Oh, really?
And when they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, there was no talking to him. He was just. Although, you know what? You know how God gets even with him? He's a Met fan.
Oh, jeez.
All righty. So we've got Jacksonville, Arizona, the Eagles. Pick number 4.
Sunday night game in Kansas City. The crowd will be a big factor, but that will not bother Aaron Rodgers, the red-hot Aaron Rodgers. Kansas City does not have its star quarterback.
How long is Mahomes out? He's got a dislocated knee.
Yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
Packers are favored by 3.5 in Kansas City.
You're taking
I like
them.
The Packers, though.
How could you not?
Yeah, I like the Packers.
Oh, this is a lock. In fact, what we need to add to this is Marrone's lock of the week.
Okay.
Da-da-da-da! Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't he date some fancy model?
Yeah.
I forget who.
I think that was a race car driver. Danica.
Oh, Danica. Yeah, okay. You ever see her hands? She's got hands like a butcher. It's the only thing. Anyway, go ahead.
I've got one fun side bet with Mr. Bob Cox.
You got a side bet with Bob Cox, the judge. Be careful.
Give me Michigan +1 over Notre Dame in Michigan. He and I made a little side wager yesterday.
And he's going with no. He's an alumni, of course. Now, what do you know about college football that makes this worthwhile, Jake?
I just hate Notre Dame so much, and I know how much he loves them, so I thought we'd have a little fun.
Oh, so you just did this as the venomous part of your personality.
Yeah.
The wicked part.
We opened up our wallets and we were gonna have you hold the money, but
Where's the money?
We actually thought best of it.
Wait. Let's go back. I'll get him on the phone. I mean, I'll get him on the. How much did you guys bet? Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah, not allowed to ask.
But was it a lot of money?
Some serious bucks.
I want you to know that the money is safe with me. You can come in. Come on in. Come on. Get her in here. Get her butt in here. Look who's here. What time's your train?
Oh, I'm coming in late because I was in Chicago.
Put her on mic 3. I heard you were in Chicago. Your husband came in the other day.
Oh, we did?
Guess who just walked in? One of our favorite people, Lorraine Carl. And we told, take a put. No, that's, I forgot. Could you turn the little twist knob up, higher. There's a little twisty. No, not that one. It's this way. No, you can't. There, right? That's it. You got it. Put my lights on. Turn it up. Put on the volume, baby. Do I look handsome or what? What are you laughing at, Lorraine? Oh, my God. Lorraine, your mic's on. What are you laughing at? We just did the picks. Do you know that he bet Bob Cox on the Notre Dame game Sunday? Lorraine Carl's with us. And they were going to let me hold the money, and I offered to hold it for them. And I was only going to charge them a small safekeeping fee. And I saw you walking by, and I announced earlier, if people want to walk in and just say hi, what's on your mind today, lovely? What were you doing in Chicago?
Work. They had a Society for Neuroscience exhibit.
Get a little closer to the mic.
Oh, Society for Neuroscience exhibit in downtown Chicago.
Was anything good? Was it thoughtful?
They're working a lot on Alzheimer's.
Well, Jake, feel free to ask a question. They're working a lot. Oh, you looked at me when you said Alzheimer's. Well, there was this rumor the other day. They think they may have a new drug for it. Is that true?
They have a lot of things that they're working on. Yeah.
What's your name again? No, that's cruel.
Who are you?
You're still doing all this traveling, too. Do you like traveling for business?
Yeah. And Chicago's quite nice, downtown Chicago.
I like Chicago.
They did a lovely job of integrating modern high-rises with their beautiful architecture.
Yes, they did.
It's gorgeous.
The only thing that always bothered me about Chicago was that there's that river in the middle of the city. It always confuses me. I got to go over this bridge and everything.
Oh, well.
So how long were you there?
A week.
Where'd you stay?
A Kempton hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know there's the Ambassador East, I guess it is, there in Chicago? Can I share a story with you?
Sure.
Now, Jake, infer nothing from this, okay, because he's evil. I was a late booking. I had to go out there to give a speech. I forget what it was for. And I had a first floor. And a lot of weird things happen on the road, as you know. So I'm in my room all by myself. And it was an unusual room at a first floor. You never almost get a room in the first floor, but it's the only room they had. A very nice room, though. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, open up! Open up. I know you're in there with my wife, and I'm going to kill both of you. And I said, oh, my God. I said, I'm not here with anybody. And he's screaming, oh, sure you're not in there. I'm going to shoot both of you. Open up the bleeping door. So I go, oh, my God. I call the front desk, and then I take the lamp. I take the shade off the lamp, and I got it like a bass pounding the door. He's trying to break in. And finally, they hold him away. Wow. Stuff happens on the road.
Yes, and for me, when I got my room, they gave me my room number, and I went upstairs, opened the door, and it was somebody else's room, but the key worked in that room, and I'm thinking, oh my God, say somebody was in bed or in a shower. I mean, it would have been horrible.
All right, you've gone to that place. I want to know why you're here, and then I'm going to share with you Jake my most embarrassing story on the road. What's going on?
I'm here because you were talking about Montefiore Hospital and
Yes.
Rochelle Hospital, and I'd like to know why the North End is allowed to go to White Plains Hospital, and where the
What do you mean they're allowed to?
Their
ambulances go there,
and where is the cutoff? I mean, do you go up as far as Eastchester Road?
Do you ask?
No, it's just a given.
I didn't know that.
Yet?
They go to White Plains a better hospital than Montefiore? You can say it.
I think so, but...
Okay, but that's probably... I'm going to put a stake in the ground and say it's geography.
But it's just as... the route is just as long.
She always gives me work, Jake.
It's just as long.
Well, no, okay.
Yeah, I think the timing. I mean, someone in the North End could tell you.
It's just as far would be a better word. You have a thing for size that troubles me about you. But
also, I wasn't around for all of these forums, the 2 forums, all of these.
On
forums.
hospital? Oh, no, the 4, yes.
And it's making me think we should have more and more an at-large at-large city council, and have the Lincoln Avenue have their council person, and everyone else is responsible, as well as Lincoln Avenue.
Wait, but everybody should be at large?
Yes.
Including Lincoln Avenue? Or no?
No, they can definitely have their minority district.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Because, I listened to as much as I could.
Of Martha?
Yes.
She's good.
Well, and
She told us how she felt. Go ahead.
And also, the new person running for Barry's seat, the two people.
I spoke to her yesterday.
And I don't think they know enough about what's going on in New Rochelle, and yet they could vote.
You said it, I didn't.
I can say it.
Yes.
But they vote for what's going on in New Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just doesn't seem fair, that they should learn about all of New Rochelle, and that's my feeling.
Look at this. You're getting a call.
I am.
What? Now, I
Is it
think,
my husband?
No, it could be my 750 guest.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not. If it's your. No, it's not. Oh no, I know this number. I know that. Let's see. Who
I was
that is
hoping
on the phone.
might be Mitch. He could tell us.
It could be. He might be on the phone. That might be him. I don't recognize the number, and I'm not allowed to give it out.
Okay.
But please do call back. We'll put you on. If
Yeah.
you're my 750 guest, call in about 5 minutes. But we'll see if he's there. All right. So. At large. That is now. I've often heard about the school board that they should go the other way.
No, I don't think so. More
Okay.
and more I don't, because it forced them to learn where Webster School is, where Lincoln School is, where Jefferson School. They had to visit, and know where it is.
Now, I have an interesting problem. Can I share it with you?
Sure.
My headphone cord is wrapped around the leg. No, it's not. Would you stop?
Oh my
Would you,
goodness.
it is not. Although actually, it is a bit of a problem because it's run through between my legs. So whenever I move forward too much, I have to go ouch. So I have to unwind this thing.
Okay.
This you have an issue. She walked in instead of a call. She walked in person. Lorraine Carl, and as you can see, she's a delightful woman with much opinions. So at home, now that's like the classic American thing where you're saying the classic American thing: majority rule, minority rights. Let's see who's on the phone. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
You curmudgeon, you.
I'm a curmudgeon.
Anthony.
I hate you. Did I tell you how much I hate him?
No, you don't.
Go ahead, Anthony.
The question that needs to be asked is, if someone in the South End wanted to go to White Plains Hospital, would they take them?
I thought of that.
I don't think so.
Well, I know when I fell down the stairs, I didn't even think. I just went straight to Montefiore, and they left me laying on the floor. It's another story for another day. Anthony came to see me. Go ahead.
I'm sure if it was a life-threatening emergency, I don't think you would have a choice. You would have to go to the nearest one.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I guess it is based on geography. But again, I'm being totally naive. Am I being naive, Lorraine?
Yeah,
and
I
Anthony?
mean, you're
Yes.
being naive.
Yes, you are.
Anyone with that choice, I shouldn't say anyone, but
Most people.
upwards of 90% of people with that choice would request to go to White Plains.
Right.
Just, it is what it is.
Who knew?
You didn't know?
No, I never thought of it. I just thought we all went to Montefiore.
No.
So I've always been in the West End. I've been in Residence Park and the West End, and then for a while White Plains in a little room.
But let me interject this to
Please
you
do.
now. I can't say it's current, okay? But a couple of months ago, my stepdad had a stroke.
Yes, God bless him.
Okay. Admitted to Montefiore. It happened on a Friday. Had to wait till Monday to be transported over to Mount Vernon Hospital because Montefiore, New Rochelle, does not have an MRI machine.
Oh, I remember Anthony
That's
saying
right.
that.
I remember
yes.
you saying it on the air. Do you know if they? Well, I know. Well, I must tell you this. I got.
But think about a hospital of that size in a community the size of New Rochelle that doesn't have a working MRI.
Now, has it been fixed since? And when was
That's
it?
why I said I don't know if
Yeah.
it's current. That's my point.
Right. No, because-
and understand. And here's the troubling part for me. Okay, for whatever. Let's say that the machine was broken. It was beyond their control. Okay. Let's go to best case scenario for them. Right across the street at 175 Memorial Highway, the old YMCA. There's New Rochelle Radiology with an MRI machine. You would think they would have some kind of contract, some kind of business affiliation that would allow them to take people literally across the street, as opposed to paying for an ambulance to transport them to another community and back.
You're making sense, and we've told you often not to do that. It's not good for radio. What do you say, Lorraine?
I say it's absolutely right. And when they start reconfiguring Memorial Highway, then what? We can't even go across the street.
Wow. You know, I do have to say this in the interest of fairness. When I fell down the stairs, and only I could break my ribs falling down the stairs, broke my ribs, lacerated my spleen, the emergency room was top flight. And they gave me a contrast MRI. That's when they found out I had internal bleeding. It wasn't until I got to my room.
You got a room.
No, actually I didn't. What happened, and Anthony knows the story, but I had, for those listening, when I got upstairs, they didn't know I was coming. Mm-hmm. So they didn't leave me on the stretcher. I was in massive pain, and I needed more shots. In the emergency room, they kept me very comfortable. So they put me in the people waiting room, like where the visitors go. And I'm in one of those smocks. The girls were happy. I'm in one of those smocks, and I have nothing on but the schmuck thing. And
you can't get into trouble for a little thing like that.
I got that, Anthony. Thank you. Lorraine would disagree with you. But I
hear her chuckling. Yes, I don't hear her disagree.
The only way I could deal with the pain is I had because of the nature of the way my ribs were broken from behind, I had to throw myself over the back of a chair like a dead horse. Like I was a dead man on a horse. And then finally, and if you remember, because he came to visit me, my body would go through these contractions where they try and straighten out the bones, and the pain was excruciating. So they finally took pity on me because I was lying and writhing on the floor.
Oh, my God.
So that was disappointing, but the emergency room was top flight. Absolutely top flight.
You lucked out because you ended up in the wing that they give to Dr. Zelikov.
My 750 guests finally showed up, but that's all right. Here they are.
You got it.
All right.
Good one.
Well, Lorraine, thank you very much. Anthony, thank you very much. You probably know these people.
Don't forget my question.
Oh, I'm not. I already wrote it down. Lorraine, but before you go,
Yes.
This woman is the managing editor of the Post, actually the Mount Vernon Post and the Westchester Post. You know Janelle
Yes,
Albritton.
yes.
Now, you've met the woman.
How do you do?
And that man there is a sports geek. In fact, you're going to have fun with him in a little while. But before we, so thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And Jake, once again, would you please go by your picks, and then we're going to get an opinion about them.
Jaguars
Go ahead.
favored 6.5. Arizona getting 10.5. Eagles getting 1.5, and Aaron Rodgers and the Packers giving 3.5, and go Michigan.
Okay, Dominic's Fine Cigars. These picks are brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont, open 7 days. And let me remind you that the Marrone lock, my lock, is Green Bay 3.5 over Kansas. Why don't you both sit down? Take a seat. Go ahead. You have to do it together today because I don't like to admonish, but you guys are a tad late. But that's okay. You made it. You made it here. All right. Nice to meet you. And in fact, since you have a sports business, Mr. Callis, we're going to ask you what you think of Jake's picks. All right. Now we're going to be adding. We have a fourth mic back there, and I will be using it soon. So let's start first, and then you can introduce. If you will both put on your headphones, your mics are already up. As you know, and she's been a regular on my different broadcasts over the last couple of years at various radio stations, she is so many things, a wellness expert. She has a master's in public health. She has a newspaper. She's a videographer. She is a jazz singer. She's very smart, and I don't care about the Me Too movement. She's very lovely as well. Please welcome once again Janelle Albritton. Good morning, Janelle.
Well, good morning.
Could you get on the mic a little bit?
This is so exciting to be here for the first time.
Yeah, you finally. What do you think of
Congratulations.
Mikasa?
Love it.
It's got all the bells and whistles, as you can see.
Got the corner office.
Yeah, I feel like I'm
windows.
flying a spaceship here.
You are. Actually, you are.
Let me look at my lineup. Now, introduce me to this man to your left. Your right, rather. I don't know my right from my left.
My right, your left. This is Steve Callis. He's many things, but the most important thing for today, we'll say that he's a sports editor for Westchester County Post.
Okay, you're her sports editor, huh?
That's correct.
Oh, I could get a little closer to the mic. So
Yep.
before we get to that, now Jake does a lot of things here at the radio station, but he has this thing. Jake's picks every week. He's a football nut. He knows what he's doing. He's got a great record. He's 4-1, but the one loss he had, he actually bet on the Jets. What do you think of his picks?
Well,
Again,
just looking over them right now, I would say I like them, but I'm going to disagree with him. I do a little work on Philly ESPN radio, so I'm
Right.
I'm up on the Eagles, and I've been on their bandwagon, and I've just jumped off because of they beat the Packers, and you're like, these guys can go to the Super Bowl, and since then they've been horrific, and they got killed in Dallas. Buffalo, as you know, played the Patriots very tough, and the Bills are at home. And they have a good defense. Their quarterback's getting better. So as much as I was on the Eagles bandwagon until last week, I'm off it now. So I'll disagree on that one pick.
okay,
with
you
Jake.
disagree on that one pick. Now, we have a well-known news guy here in New Rochelle. Was in the other day, went to Notre Dame, had all the Notre Dame garb on.
Yeah.
And they made a side bet. And I want you to know how safe your money is. If you should make a side bet with Jake, I hold the money for a very reasonable safekeeping fee.
Okay. I'll defer to Jake and whatever he wants to do. You can be the neutral party.
I will hold your money. Now, it also is part of an investment company that I run. I will hold that money for you for a month, and you'll get a return on your investment. Okay. Now, look, Janelle Albritton, what are you doing? Where are you?
Oh, no.
Get over here.
No. This is all good for you, Bob, I hope.
Well, I'm not sure.
This is to make up for my lateness.
Oh,
This
that's
is
how
what
it
this
happens.
is.
Don't worry about it with Janelle.
No, here it is.
We have a very special video for you
Very special with
Oh,
great
no.
with great audio,
with great audio.
so your audience
Do you
can
plug
hear it.
in? Can we plug in, or should I just play it into
Just
the mic?
play it on the mic right now. As you
right.
see, I have all the technology to do this. I'm still learning.
This,
some
this
of
is
it.
for Bob Marrone, the big Ranger fan and hockey guy.
Yeah, that I am. Jake, you're here to protect me, right? If you have to use a knife, use it. Go ahead. Come on, Janelle.
Speaking of sports and Bob Marrone, this one's for you. We're going to talk about the greatest Ranger of all time, and very few people know who he is, but you might. My friend Russ Cohen wrote a book, The 100 Greatest Rangers of All Time.
I have
He
that
named
book.
Brian Leach the greatest Ranger of all time.
Brian Leach.
Really? I mean, really, Bob? You know that can't be true.
I don't
Here's
think
the
it's
greatest
Brian
Ranger
Leach.
of all time.
Rod Gilbert.
There was a guy in the 20s and 30s named Frank Boucher.
Oh, Frank
He was
Boucher.
the center for the
Oh,
greatest Ranger
God,
line
even
of
I
all
wasn't
time,
alive
Red
then.
Line. He played center, and brothers Bill and Bun Cook played the wings.
The Cook brothers.
As you know, they won 2 Stanley Cup titles, 1928 and 1933.
I know.
In 1928,
Sounds great.
Frank Boucher, it was 3 out of 5. The Rangers scored 5 goals in the 3 games. Frank Boucher scored 4 of them, including the winning goal in every game. Think about that. So, you know the famous story of Lawrence Shabbat got hit in the head with a puck.
Yes, I do.
He came out. The Montreal Maroons wouldn't let the Rangers bring in another goalie who was in the stands. That's how they did it in the old days, but the other team had to agree. They didn't agree. So 43-year-old Lester Patrick, the coach, put the goalie pads on, went out, and shut out the Montreal Maroons the rest of the way. And who scored the winning goal in overtime? Frank Boucher.
Frank Boucher.
Okay, so he was the star of both Stanley Cup winning teams. But he won the Lady Byng Trophy, and I know you know what the Lady Byng Trophy is. He won it so many times in a row that they retired the trophy and gave it to Frank Boucher, and then they used another trophy. So flash forward to 1940, I'm sure you know the third Rangers Stanley Cup. Who was the coach? Frank Boucher.
Frank Boucher.
Come on now, they've only won 4 Stanley Cups in the history
Now-
of the world. And then the final is in
That's
1950, you probably know, that the Rangers lost Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals to your Detroit Red Wings. I know you rooted for them before you rooted for the Rangers.
I did.
And they lost in
That's
double
mean.
overtime. And who was the general manager that put that team together?
Frank Boucher.
Frank Boucher. So I rest my case. There can be no one other than Frank Boucher as the greatest Ranger of all time. This is Steve Callis, speaking of sports, for Bob Marrone. Come on.
All right. I want you to listen. this is going to get ugly now.
Hold it though. Did you like
No,
that?
no,
Did you like
I
that?
loved it. It was enjoyable. What shovel did you use to dig up Frank Boucher? Or did you use a crane or
no.
one of those little
No, it's
Backhoe.
it's not a
Backhoe.
It's not a shovel, and you'll love the story. My father went to George Washington High School in Manhattan. When he was in high school in 1933, he was given an assignment: do a scrapbook of current events. He did the 1933 Stanley Cup Final.
Wow. Okay.
So I have a scrapbook from
Okay.
the 30s, and then when I was a kid, he made me do it.
He
Although the
ma- he
Rangers
made you
never
look at
won. No, he made me do scrapbooks of my own.
Now, I go back, as you know, with the Rangers. I'm a little older than you, and I hate to say that. I always thought that the greatest Rangers, and a lot of people think because he was such a good leader that it was Messier, but I don't. Before him, you had a great player, and you know who it is. Before the Rangers got good in the '70s, Andy Bathgate may have been one of the greatest.
Awesome.
May have been. So, to Rod Gilbert was undoubtedly the most popular Ranger in history.
Correct.
Now, but actually, your case for Boucher, I don't think I can argue it, and I hate you for it. However,
Hate me for it.
well, no, because if you're going to put something like that together, I think Gordie Howe, who is the most complete player ever to play the game, and also the most schizophrenic. Now, you don't know this about this, Janelle.
I do not.
This man on the rink played what he called religious hockey. It was better to give than receive.
Punches in the face.
That would have been nice. He used his elbows. In fact, what I want you to do is go on your phone and when you get a chance and get a photo of Gordie Howe fishing with no shirt on. He was the original. He had a body like Popeye. I'm not kidding.
You're right.
Like Popeye, scary, but as a kid, he used his stick like a surgeon. He was mean and wicked. He could skate. He could shoot. He could score. He could fight. He played. The only major league player, I think they made, well, actually, no, Satchel Paige pitched 60 a couple of innings. He played in the major league of hockey at 52. However, off the rink, there was nobody nicer. He'd sign autographs for hours. He totally got the bifurcation that's necessary. So I still have like a Gordie Howe sweatshirt, and when I wear it to my own games, people make fun of me. How long have you been following hockey, and is it your favorite sport, I hope?
Hockey is my second favorite
That's it.
sport. I'm a baseball guy first.
He's 52 in that. Look at the arms on him.
Yeah, no, I know all about. Believe me, I know all about Gordie.
Yeah,
Howe.
Gordie.
Rare
and
photos.
scored still 15 goals in his final year.
Yep.
Where he was playing, I think. At
He was
the end
playing
with
with
his
the Hartford
sons.
Whalers,
He was
playing with his sons, with the Hartford
Oh, my
Whalers when they
goodness.
Marty and
it was
Mark.
in the W. In fact, what's funny
Him
is
at 65.
who is that?
That's him.
But that's not Gordie. That's too much. And Gordie never lifted a weight in his life. You know, his weight was the same too. Anyway, I go back to the Red Wings of Del Vecchio and Gordie,
Wow.
and because my first coach had done scouting for the Red Wings, and that's how I became a Red Wing fan and fell in love with Gordie. But what happened is eventually, your home, they faded away. All the guys I loved, I still have a little soft spot for them. You never get over the jersey. Then I became a Ranger fan finally, and my grandson just calls me, a bandwagoner.
Wow.
But I've been rooting
Ouch.
for the Rangers.
Just tell him the whole story. He'll understand, hopefully.
No, I have. He does understand, but
Okay.
again, he's a teenager. Anything he can do to abuse me. So, have you played? Do you play? Have you played any
I
sports?
played a lot of roller hockey when I was a kid.
Where at?
Well, I grew up in Inwood on Dykeman Street, and we played across from the firehouse. We even played against Joey Mullen down by
By
the United Nations. There, they had that.
Oh no, I know. I've
It's all
skated
all
there.
roller-
Well, I
all
played.
roller
I
hockey.
played. Well, I played both. Obviously,
Right.
the greatest roller hockey league in the world was over in Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, and we played with and against the Mullins there.
Yeah.
My goalie right now was he's an amazing man. We play over 30 hockey. Was Joey Mullen's coach. And
And you know the story of the Mullins. They got ice time
No.
because their father ran the Zamboni.
no, you got to understand. We
at
grew
the
up.
Ogarden.
We grew up playing against them and with them. In fact, what was kind of cool, we played against them in Fort Hamilton, and they came from the west side of Manhattan. We were
Right.
largely from Brooklyn, some from Queens, but almost all from Brooklyn. And we had against them, we had a rivalry that sometimes got bitter.
I'm sure.
Now, in the mid-'90s, we all got old, and my team decides that they're going to pull out of the Fort Hamilton and go to this league in Aberdeen. And so we go and I was actually we coached then and decided to come back and play. I was getting in my early 40s. I had high blood pressure. So now I'm going to come back and be a full-time player. And anyway, so we get there, and who do we see? A team called the Last Hurrah. But it was the same jerseys that the Mullins wore. And we resumed from the mid-'90s to the mid-2000s, we resumed our rivalry. Now, as we all got older, and we were ready to go from A, because we were playing in the A division, go to B, your longtime enemies become your friends after a while.
Right.
So the vestiges of both teams became together, and most of us, a lot of us are still together to this day.
Well,
we've been playing together for 12 years.
Well, Janelle told me you've won a few championships.
Yeah, we have. I got a
recently,
picture of them up there. 2014 was the
Cool.
over 50, and that
Cool.
was that one up there is very important. Now I'm very close with the goalie that I'm telling you about.
The Blackhawk
but that's when we were enemies,
Right.
and that's when we beat. And if you're listening, Dennis, that's when we beat him for the first time in 1999. There it is.
Wow.
We beat. I'm the guy in the lower right. I actually had black hair once.
Very cool.
And this was 2014, and we won
Very
our
cool.
championship in Las
Well, I will
Vegas.
say this. You probably know then. I went to Powell Memorial High School.
Oh God, great school. Joey went there. Yeah, Joey
went
and
there.
Brian. And,
Joey's in the Hall of Fame.
yeah.
I think we're going to eventually put.
As is Steve Callis.
I didn't say that she did. It's true, but I didn't say that.
Say that again.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
You're in the Hall of Fame.
At Powell Memorial.
What for?
I was a baseball player. I graduated second in my class, and then they look at what you did after. I played baseball at NYU. Went
You
to
played
law
college
school.
baseball. What
Oh,
position
yeah.
did you play?
I pitched a little, but mainly center fielder.
Don't talk to me about pitching. I love pitching. It's my second love to hockey.
Well, I told you about my dad before. He was not only a hockey nut, he was a minor league catcher for the Yankees right before World War II. Then he went into the service for 4 years.
You're a big cat, by the way.
Huh?
How tall are you?
5'11".
You're a big cat when you're 5'7". But you're broad. You have long
Wow.
arms. Did you throw hard?
No, I did not. I had the greatest curveball and changeup in the world.
Yeah, I had
did
a good
not
one,
throw
too.
hard. But when I was in high school, I was like 150 pounds. When I was in college, I was 160.
So what'd you make the Hall of Fame for? Hitting?
No, it's a combination.
Did you do well with the cheerleaders? What?
We had
He did have
power.
a high
All
batting
board?
average. 350.
I hit
something.
350 in college, D1 for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
What position in college?
center field mostly.
So you could throw the ball. In
I
center
could-
field, you had to have
I-
a decent arm.
I could run like the wind. That was my advantage. I was small, skinny by comparison, but
Pitcher who can hit.
Do you know I was my claim to fame is a little different. I'm not in my high school Hall of Fame, but I do have a distinction very few people have. In the mid 60s, God, I'm dating myself, but in the mid 60s, there were very few. It's not like up here in Westchester where you have all these teams and rinks, and they finally gave us. We were allowed to have a hockey team, and they could give us a moderator, but they couldn't afford a coach. So at the age of 16, 17, I was the
You were
player
the
coach
coach.
of my high school hockey team.
that's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, and we had a moderator, and
Right.
but I was lucky. I had a really great coach early on, and I still run teams today. I love that part of the game now at this age, probably more than actually playing. Maybe I don't know, but I played some high school ball, but I mangled my arm really badly. And in fact, you remember the situation with I could always hit for average, no power. But I guess his name was Drabeck. When he threw
Doug Drabeck.
Doug Drabeck,
Yeah.
when he brought his arm broke throwing a pitch, that actually happened to me.
Wow.
What had happened was, as you're 15, 16, you're playing stickball. And we were playing stickball in the street. And I took a short hop.
All right.
And when you take a short hop, for those of you who are watching, you bring your hands up like this.
Right.
And when I brought my hands up, I hit the back of a car mirror. This is a few
yeah.
days before.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh.
And what I didn't know, because when you were a kid, you played ball every day. Your arm always hurt. I didn't know that I fractured it.
Ouch.
And so a few nights later, I'm pitching, and I throw the ball as hard as I can. It was in a tough situation, and I heard the snap in my head. And it snapped diagonally, came out through the skin and twisted. And the next thing I remember is I'm on the ground, and my thumb is pointing this way with my palm down.
Wrong direction.
Well, but here was there's a sweet side to this. There's always sweet sides to things.
Okay, I'm waiting for this one.
It took a couple of years
Sounds really awful.
for me to rehab. In fact, it was awful. Guys, they called me cork arm for 2 years. I had to throw like this. But I rehab. Then I got obsessed when I was rehabbing with pitching. So our baseball team, we would do a lot of sandlot stuff between seasons. I played for a team called the Seaboos in the PGL, Parade Ground League, really good league.
Yeah, I want to talk about that when
Now,
you're done.
I was a pitcher, but they just said, no, you can't pitch. You don't throw hard enough. You don't throw hard enough anymore. Your arm's mangled. You can't play. You can't pitch anymore. You have to play second base. And by then, I had my arm fully extended. So one night, we were playing a pickup game against this team. We used them for practice. In fact, this is the day. We called them the Puerto Ricans because we're all Puerto Ricans from what's now Kensington. Great ball players. We were friends with them. And they were in a different league. And so we would say, come on, we're going up to play the Puerto Ricans tonight to have another, when we knew so they were like our practice team and we were theirs. And one week we'd bring the catcher equipment and the other week they would. So and this week we got all screwed up and nobody brought catcher's equipment. So my manager wanted to placate me. And he said, all right, talks to the other coach. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it like a softball game. We're just going to throw lob in 3/4 and be very careful with the catcher. Make sure you hit the ball. So guess what the manager said to me? Hey, Bob, would you like to pitch? You miserable son of a bitch. Anyway, so I said, sure. And here's where I got lucky. My arm, evidently I'm not a kinesiologist, but it healed a little awkwardly. Mm-hmm. So do you know when you're just throwing batting practice 3/4, you drop your arm down?
Yep.
And the first pitch I throw goes zzz, it curves.
You got a great breaking ball now.
The next one zzz. Anyway, make a long story short, we won the game like 16-2, and the 2 runs they got were because they were lefties. I had this wide breaking natural curve, and one of the coaches had been a minor league pitcher. He taught me how to throw a curve, taught me how to even throw a screwball, throw a slider, snap it off over the top.
Yep.
Now here's the truth. I'd love to say that I made this wonderful comeback. I managed to get back as a pitcher for one fall season. It's like the B season.
Amazing.
But still, and I was more proud of that than anything I'd accomplished in hockey. But what junk I had. The only problem is left-handed hitters, there are some balls still up there.
Right.
So I had to throw at lefties. What I would do at lefties is I'd throw at their shoulder, not their head. I throw at their shoulder, not that they were afraid of it.
Good to hear, though. But go ahead.
I'd back them off the plate, and then I'd try to go outside in with the big curve.
Yep.
In fact, my curve was so good. It's an absolutely true story. The roundhouse curve was so good.
How good was it?
That they gave me a left-handed catcher.
Ah.
In other words, because he could reach out.
Yes.
But God, I couldn't throw hard.
Well, I will tell you this about the Parade Ground
Great
Leagues.
story.
I grew up in Manhattan. We played in all the leagues in Bronx, Manhattan.
Yeah.
By the time I got out of high school, there were no leagues left. So my catcher in high school, Tommy Danko at Power, took me out to Brooklyn to the Parade Grounds League.
Great league.
Now we played. When I went out there, they were terrible. We played for Mel Zitter at Youth Service League.
Mm-hmm.
Once he started getting all the Manhattan guys, he went from last to first. The 2 years I played before I aged out, we won the championship. Eventually, Manny Ramirez played.
Sure.
We went to
Who did you play
Johnstown.
with?
I played with, well, I don't know if you know these guys. They were all New York City stars. Well, we played with Steve Klein,
Oh,
who
sure.
signed and
Yeah,
played for the
yeah,
Toledo
absolutely,
Mudhens.
yeah.
But the guys from New York, Jose Sunkar, Tommy Danko,
I know.
Ricky Corbo.
Now, I'm older than
we
you,
had a
so
bomb
I'm
squad.
going to tell you who I played against
Not
in
by
that
too
league.
much.
The guy what?
What?
Shut up. I played against John Candelaria, and my claim to fame with Candelaria was he threw hard, but he had a great curveball. I had an at-bat against him. I'm sorry to say I popped out. I'll give you 11 pitches I fouled off before
11?
he got me. Yeah,
Against
I had a good
Candelaria?
eye. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he could. Well, I hit fastball pitches pretty well, but there was this one guy. He made it only up to Double-A, George Seaman, and I was a smart hitter with no power, but George threw about 95 or so, and
Wow.
and he was in the PGL, but he was stupid. I hate to say this. In other words, if his catcher shook him off, you were getting a curve, and you had to know that. So I'm waiting. First, it was in the first or second inning. We won the game 1-0. I drove in the 1 run. I should have had a home run. And I'm watching him throw. And so I got up and I said, let me see his first pitch. Doesn't shake the guy off, so I know it's a fastball. I barely see the thing. And I actually get that sick feeling in my stomach. Oh, God. Shakes him off, curve. He doesn't shake him off, another pitch. I just swing right through a fastball. I was late. Now, he doesn't shake him off. it's 1 ball, 2 strikes. He should have thrown one in the dirt. I couldn't see the goddamn thing. So he
Just hear it hit the catcher's mitt.
no, and just about no. But you've never played. But you actually hear. Well, you know, you played Division I. You actually hear buzz. I mean, the ball goes zzz. And so I said, you know what? I got a good eye. Start swinging early and aim for the blur. And because he didn't shake him off, and he was stupid. He never put anyone in the dirt. 0-2, wanted to throw it in the dirt to an idiot like
You're
me.
right.
But he could right down the pike, and I got lucky. The meat of the bat. And like an idiot, I'm so shocked that I hit him. I'm watching the ball because I never hit for power. In fact, I got a lot of singles because they played the left fielder at normal depth. And but this thing just took off. And I went, oh my God! I'm walking up the first baseline. You run. So I slide into third with a triple, drove in the 1 run. I should have had a home run, and that's my claim to fame in baseball. I could hit. I went 1 season without striking out, but that
Wow.
also tells you I had no power. But
Yeah,
I
but
could,
that's incredible.
But
Come
I
on.
could no. I had 20/10 vision now. Now I have 8 pairs of glasses. so you played Division I ball.
I did.
That's like the low minors. That's good stuff. And in some cases, you got guys go to the majors. Not so much then, but
And after college, I played in the Central Park Hispanic League. I was the
That's
only
a
white
great
guy in the
league.
Yeah, and I led that league in hitting the 1 year I played.
that's a great league. I'm telling you, the guys we played, the Latinos we used to play, they were better than the PGL guys because they
100%.
were. When I say, hey, we're going up to Kensington to the Prospect Park to play the Puerto Ricans, that went, wow, you're going to play those. They were good. They were great ball players.
You're right.
And they made us a better team, no question. Now, Janelle, I've got like 6 more minutes before I go to my next guest, and you brought a guest, so I wanted to get to know him a little bit.
No,
so
I really, I wanna
but before you
focus
go,
on him.
so what are you doing now? I know you do sports radio, ESPN. Who are you working for?
Well, I do some work on ESPN Philly down in Philly because my buddy Joe Stazak, we were doing a podcast together, and now I go on like every weekend with him for like 15-minute segments. It's more Philly-based, as you would imagine, but unfortunately in New York, we haven't had much of a football season. We haven't had much of a basketball season. We haven't had much of a hockey
It's
season.
starting,
for
though. By the
last-
way, now, when you were down, when you were in Philly, do you have to report on the dreaded Flyers?
Only occasionally. It's really, you probably know, it's an Eagles town. It's a 76ers town
Yeah,
now
but
after all those
Yeah,
years of
but yes,
losing.
but the Flyers sell out every game. I mean, they're an institution.
They do, but I can tell you on radio, it's just not as popular. Now, they have the goalie Hart now, the new guy.
Yeah, Carter Hart.
Right, so they're hoping they can turn that around.
Well,
but,
I use the Flyers. Now, most of my radio, naturally, doing morning radio and stuff, is political. And so I've only started since I have my own station now. I talk a little more hockey, and we're working on a really good, we even have a sponsor for it. We have podhockey.com.
Awesome.
And we're going to be doing hockey, but we're going to cover it like the Mullen brothers and the local, and even the insult they did to me. When I turned 50, Brian Mullen and a bunch of guys on the other team, we were playing his team
Right.
that night. This is after he left the Islanders. He played with the last hurrah against us, the Rat. Anyway, on my 50th birthday, they gave me a walker made out of wooden hockey sticks. And we couldn't get it in my car. So Brian Mullen and I, in the middle of the night, trying to sell. But anyway, so podhockey.com. But having said that, doing politics, I always think of the Flyers when we talk about trying to get peace deals done, whether it between the Palestinians and the Israelis or the Shias and the Sunnis, because now the Flyers almost ruined my beloved sport. You won't know this, Janelle.
Of course not.
They almost ruined my beloved sport in the 70s.
They did.
I'm
That's
sorry.
in fact they led to the movie The Slap Shot would not have existed without them, and the refs let it go and the league let it go. They'd actually chase a good player up and down the rink and want to beat him up. I
Correct.
hated them. But here's the point. Now it's 50 years later. The kids that are playing for them, some could be my sons. Okay, they're nice kids. They don't play the game like that anymore. But because they wear that orange uniform, I viscerally hate them. You know, I actually used to pray for their bus to spin out on the turnpike on their way up from Philly. That's how much I. But how are these other countries going to make peace when I want these young Flyers to die? I'm just,
It's you're kind of combining both of
We
your
need-
loves, I guess.
Yeah, I
politics and
am.
Sport, but the Broad Street Bullies.
I
were
mean,
the Broad Street
nobody
Bullies.
shot their kids or
You sound post-traumatic. I'll have a tapping session with you sometime.
Tapping. No, you need to punch the living spit out of me. A tapping session. No, I hate them down to the depth and breadth my soul can reach. I don't hate anybody else since. But wait, I'm thinking about that. I used to hate the Oakland Raiders that much back in the day.
When they were good.
Yeah, they were. But do you ever see this? A little before your time, they had the greatest rivalry with the Kansas City Chiefs in the '60s. You can read Dal Monica versus Kenny Stabler. This is back when I was a big football fan when I was a kid. I grew out of it because I was always playing hockey. But, except, now a little bit, I grew up in a gambling neighborhood. And if you follow sports, you know gambling has always weaved its way.
I'm shocked.
For 6
Shocked.
years, for 6 years, wench, for 6 years,
Oh,
you
that's the
could
second
not,
dig.
no, for 6 years, you could not bet on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, why do you think that is? Well, I can tell you what the gamblers and the main guys in the neighborhood used
Fixed
to see. If you
games?
remember, they had their coach Madden, I think his name. I forget the coach's name. I shouldn't say that. But he always used to have the program lined up, and I can show people. I got to remember also on TV here. He had it like this. And the gamblers in their real Joe Pesci's way, he's got the bleeping sports eye in there. We know he bet on the team himself. You know? Anyway, Janelle, you bring me visitors. I really appreciate this. We have to talk more. Mr. Steve Callis is his name. He does sports. He's the sports editor for your 2 newspapers. Now, are you doing 2 separate newspapers?
No.
Somebody's calling.
Who's calling?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who it is. It's probably my next guest. It's a minute early. We'll get to them in a minute. But
All right.
You bring me guests before I send you away. Talk to me.
Well, if you're going to call me Winch, it's Ms. Winch.
Wench was the word. Miserable. I thought of another word, but
It
even
is
though
Halloween.
it is. I see you dressed for it.
Yes, that's right. I brought my broom. It's parked outside.
Did you know that she's a model for Halloween No, she's. See, no, isn't it funny?
model.
I can say that. Now, if I say she's good looking, the Me Too movement will come and get me.
Now he has to buy me dinner.
Dinner.
At a really
No, but
expensive
if she
place.
says that,
It'll
if
cost you.
it's better for me to make fun of her than it is to give her a compliment.
And you do
in
it
this
to my
day and age.
face.
Well, this is
So-
true. I do it to your face, not behind your back.
Can they feel the love? Do
You
you feel the love?
miserable
Do you feel
human
the love in
being.
the
You.
room?
Oh, it's always so good to see you. How's the paper going before we go?
It's good. So I'm putting all the printing on hold because I could not do the printing and develop
run out of
digital
ink?
at the same time. I just couldn't do both at the same time. So I'm building a team. As you know, content is a vital component of
Mm-hmm.
this work. You have good content, and then you have good ways to get the content to the audience.
Now, is it just? Have you changed the whole brand to Westchester, or do you have 2 different papers now?
Well, I still have the Mount Vernon Post, and that URL redirects. to
Caller
the
will be
Westchester
right with
County,
you. Yeah, go ahead.
Redirects to the Westchester County Post. Right now, I'm focused on the county and just curating great content and developing a team. I've got a digital guy who helped USA Today go digital back in the day. I've got Steve Callis on board with the sports and other things.
You couldn't get anybody good. He's a miserable human being too. He's just.
Well,
like
I brought
you.
him here for your stamp of approval.
Well, listen, he's got it and more. Listen, if you guys want to hang around, my next guest is a techno geek from Good
Nice.
Morning America. And you, since you're both geeks, stay right there. We're going to go to our next guest, but we remind you, you're listening to Radio Westchester. We are live at the New Rochelle train station. We have many strange visitors today. It must really be Halloween. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. And we go to our next guest, award-winning technology reporter Andrea Smith. She's been on Good Morning America and on WABC TV, ABC News Digital, the Huffington Post. Now, the holiday season's coming, but I always like to talk to these techno weenies because I have no idea what they're talking about. But fortunately, there are people in here who do. So please welcome, without further ado, Andrea Smith. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. I'm good, thank you. Did you just call me a techno weenie?
No, I would never call you a techno weenie. That would not me. Why? No, you have to understand why. I have a couple of guests in the studio that are geeks. And I just this whole radio station has been revamped several times, and I am steeped in geekness. My studio looks like the space shuttle in here. I can do anything. I can put you on right now. I can put somebody on in Australia, and they'll sound like they're in the studio, remote and all. Anyway, I digress. So my techno weeniness. Actually, Miss Smith, thank you very much for being on Radio Westchester. Tell us about the new gadgets coming out. And these two will just start sweating and palpitating when you do this. So go ahead, tell us what you got.
Good. I love talking to techno geekies.
No,
So Bob,
the one woman's a true
lot
dork.
of fun tech stuff coming out, and the thing is, all the people who you're getting gifts for, they want all this techno goodness.
Trust
they want laptops, they want smartphones, they want smart home devices. So
Smart-
let me tell you about a couple of the things I like. If you are looking to upgrade someone's smartphone, take a look at the OnePlus 7T.
What?
This is a 6.55-inch Android phone. It has premium features like a super fast processor, 3 cameras. It's got a 48-megapixel main lens, a wide-angle lens, and a 2x zoom lens. Now, there's also a 90 hertz display. I'll explain it. It's a geeky way of saying you're going to get smoother scrolling and more vivid images on that screen. This supports fast charging. What that means is with the Warp Charge 30T charger...
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I have 6 of them. Go ahead.
You can go... Wait, you're going to be impressed, from 0 to 70% charge in just half an hour. This phone costs $599, a lot less than the competition.
Now, could you give me the name of that phone again so I can process it in my tiny brain?
It's called OnePlus.
OnePlus.
So OnePlus is the company, and it is the 7T.
OnePlus 7T. T as in teeth. Okay, who makes it, or is it that's the company as well?
OnePlus. OnePlus is the company that makes it.
It sounds like this is a real computer for the smartphones and the Google. What is it? The 10 or the 10 times 12?
We're up to the 11 now, Bob.
Oh, the geeks just yelled at me. It's 11. It's 11. You should see
But
them.
the thing is, the OnePlus 7T has all of these premium features. It's got the 3 cameras. It's got the faster processor. And it's a lot less money.
You know, let me ask you something. Since you are a self-appointed geek, Andrea, are you one of these people who gets misty-eyed when you go to Micro Center?
No, but I do enjoy looking at the latest tech.
I know a woman uses it for foreplay. He goes there, she's ready to go. All right, what else you got? What else you got?
All right, so if you need to get a gift for someone, always on the go, always trying to do their emails and check things out, I recommend a Chromebook, like Lenovo's C340. So let me explain this one. A Chromebook is a laptop that runs on Google's streamlined Chrome operating system.
Of course.
So that means it syncs with your Android phone, it syncs with your Android tablet, so you can log in and see your files from anywhere you are.
I actually like that. Yeah.
I do too. The C340 has a slim 2-in-1 form factor, which I love, an 11.6-inch touchscreen, comes in silver and sand pink, which is so beautiful, and it gets 11 hours of battery life.
11?
That is a lot of battery life.
I just can't see me on an airliner with a pink PC, but go ahead. Continue, please.
10 hours of battery life is killer. This is a great, really affordable gift for a college student. Someone who needs access to their email, their documents, their pictures.
My granddaughter would love the pink one in all seriousness. I'm glad they have I'm serious, they're really different colors. I want to remind folks, geez, you're delightful. We got to get you back to when we're done today. Andrea Smith, she's an award-winning technology reporter. You've seen her on Good Morning America, CNBC, all kinds of different outlets. She's telling us about the latest devices as we head into the holiday season. Continue, please.
All right, 2 more cool things to tell you about. Stocking stuffers, right? If you're looking for a great stocking stuffer, a phone case is always a perfect fit. Now, the OtterBox Symmetry Series, I love these. They let you reflect your personal style. They come in great colors, great designs, but they also do the job of protecting you from accidental drops and bumps, because we're all guilty of dropping our phone on the kitchen floor. So you want the Symmetry Series. They're slim, they're sleek. You can just slip them right in and out of your pocket. No matter how tight those jeans are, throw it in your purse. So if you know someone upgrading to the latest OnePlus or iPhone devices, OtterBox has you covered. And now we're all talking about, we're getting into that weather season where you may lose your power. If you worry about losing your home phone and internet when the power goes out,
I do.
Look at the Uma Tello 4G.
The who?
This is a backup service.
The Luna Teller? Say that again, please.
Uma.
Luma. Okay.
OOMA.
Oma.
It's a backup service that keeps you connected. It runs on a wireless LTE network for under $20 a month.
Speaking of tight jeans, I just want to go back to this because one of the geeks here, she runs a whole bunch of online magazines. She's actually very good and very technical, except she doesn't have a cover on her phone, and it looks like it was at Pearl Harbor after the blast. What oh, whose is this? This is his phone?
That's the cover.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. That's the cover? All right, because I had a question for you about covers, Andrea. My cover, it's a very good, strong cover because I'm a klutz, but it gets in the way of my finger, and sometimes I hit what I don't want to hit, because it's right. Anyway, I don't know why I'm complaining. Andrea Smith, continue. We've got a few more minutes, and this is really good and interesting, and I've already got a couple of gifts now that I can buy. I'm getting that pink laptop for my granddaughter. I know that. Continue, please.
Well, I would just say on the cover, you want something that's going to protect your phone, but it's also, you also want to be able to use your phone. OtterBox has a whole line of cases, so I would recommend you go to their website and check them all out. And in fact, I would recommend you go to the websites of all of the brands I mentioned, get some more information, and start your holiday shopping. Bob, it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Oh, wait, if you got a minute, one of my guests has a question for you, one of the techno geeks. Techno Weenie, speak to Andrea Smith.
Hi, what an honor. Hi, this is Janelle. Does the OtterBox have... Hi. Does the OtterBox have a built-in battery for the iPhone 10 or
OtterBox
11?
makes great cases that have built-in batteries. They make slim battery chargers. OtterBox is one of my favorite brands. They make waterproof cases, so check them all out because whatever it is you need, they make it.
Yeah, you know what she's concerned about too? I gave her some advice. She can't fit her phone in her tight jeans, so I put her on a diet. All right, thank you very much, Andrea Smith. What a pleasure and what an honor. Please do feel free to come back anytime. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. It's 8:30. We have a couple of things to do in a few more minutes before we talk to Dr. Victor Sternberg. You're listening to Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I already told you why I don't have a bigger easel. Went to the store last night. In fact, I should share this with you too. Last night, I tried to go to Staples. I would say where or how. I needed a bigger easel because the one I had was too big, a bigger one than the one I have. I needed a toner for my printer. Huge store, 30 people, 30 customers in there. All they had was 1.5 employees. Everybody called in sick in the same day. It's ridiculous what they do in retail. I just want to remind people the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. We're also supported today by Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, Dominic Sakars, who brought us the picks of the week, and plug-in virtual reality. It is 45 degrees, going to get up to the mid-60s today. Tonight, it'll be cool. Once again, good sleeping weather. We'll have more of that coming up. Now, coming up in a few minutes, we'll talk with Dr. Victor Sternberg. You remember him from his show on 2 different stations, Politics in Your Health. He'll be joining us at 8:35, some 4 minutes from now. But I really wanted to thank Janelle for coming in. You're a good sport. I thought I'd pick on you a little bit since you were picking on me.
As long as you can take it as you dish it out.
You know I can. You know that. Are you kidding? The abuse I take in general, the stuff that goes on. Steve, it's really good to make your acquaintance. We need to talk more.
Sounds good.
So how long, before you go, how long you been in the sports business?
I started appearing on MSG Network in 2001, and I had written for the New York Post Sports Week. Remember that one year they had it? I had a column there, and I had actually written something after interviewing Jim Cott when he worked at MSG.
I remember Jim Cott well.
And they stopped publishing the Post. I had this great article, so I called up the guy at MSG who gave me access to Jim Cott, and he said, well, why don't you come on over here? You can do the article. I went on with Deb Kaufman, who's now Deb Placey.
Yeah, no, she is.
And from there, they hired me to write a column, a weekly column there for 4 years. And then I've done some work at WFAN, SNY. I'm also an attorney. I did some...
You're an attorney?
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
I did some...
I'm innocent!
I did some law stuff, Plaxico Burress and stuff like that. So I've been in it for a long time.
You've been in around. So what are you doing for Janelle? Now, is he covering local sports for you? Like the high schools, the colleges?
Well,
we've got great basketball. Hockey gets no coverage up here.
Well, because of one of her sponsors, we do Notre Dame football every week. We do a video, an article on Notre Dame football. But this week, for example, we shoot videos every Wednesday. We did the playoffs, the World Series. We did a Ranger preview a couple of weeks ago where I said they'll be 7th and 8th, keeping my fingers crossed. Then they were 2-0, and then the roof caved in after 2 games.
I put a curse on them, 3 years ago.
Because?
The curse of the Bobino, we called it.
Because?
I wanted Kevin Shattenkirk when he signed with the Rangers because he's from right here in New Rochelle.
New Rochelle guy. Right.
And I'm very stubborn sometimes. Now, I've talked to his parents when he first got drafted. I could have walked to his house where his parents were and gotten him.
Right.
But I don't like that. One of the things about radio and being involved with these kinds of people that do this for a living, and you know this in show business in general, news in general, it's all about who you know. And that really bothers me. So I wanted to go through channels. And the Rangers wouldn't let me talk to him.
Really?
Yep. And it was very Kafkaesque in the way they did it. Well, you'd have to know, if you ever work with the Garden, forget the team, the most miserable human beings on the planet work for MSG. In every walk of life. I don't know how. They leave the Rangers alone, thank God. And I said, he lives a mile from the radio. He grew up a mile from the radio. I can get, well, we don't want him on a local station, just national and the Fan. That's it. We don't want him on any other station.
That's
and they wouldn't give me
terrible.
press credentials.
Really?
Even though and I could have called Paul Feiner and had him in a minute. I could have walked over to Shattenkirk's house. But instead, I made a radio bit out of it. I said, I now put the curse of the Bobino on them. You know what? They lost 3 years in a row.
I know, but
I love the team, but I hate the people that run.
But John Davidson's back now.
I
Maybe
love that he's been.
that'll
No, but it
change.
wasn't at that level. No, it wasn't at that level. Oh no, hockey people are the best. If you know it's true. They're down to earth. They're humble. They're decent. I mean, I met when he was 20 years old. I know Ranger fans. It was calm down, but it was. You have to understand that what they hate. I met Bob Nystrom, who was the nicest person on the planet. He's the guy that told me John Davidson would one day be a great goalie. Hockey people are absolutely the best. And even in the leagues I play in, a guy gets sick, his mother gets cancer, tournament, raise thousands of dollars. We got to do this. Hockey people are the best. No, I'm talking about the PR people and the marketing people at the Garden. They give you this sweet image, but they are miserable, cynical sons of biatches.
Can I get a picture of your face like that?
Well, no. And so I did not call his family. I didn't write separately. I have more fun putting the curse of the Bobino, but I still root for the team. But and again, even if you
well, now there's Twitter. So.
no, if you go to an event, you'll actually see, like if men there or women have interviewed people who play for the Knicks, okay, or the Rangers, they even give you the questions to ask. I mean, it's just, the only time they didn't do it, and even then, boy, I was doing pre-games for the Westchester Knicks, but we weren't allowed inside the place proper. We had to be out by
Really?
because it was sponsored by a different organization. We couldn't get the players, and we couldn't get the coach.
Well, that's hard. That's hard to
Yeah,
do
but
that.
yeah,
Other
but
than
I was
that-
happy, and it got me in trouble. They let me interview the cheerleaders, so I had a lot of fun with that. I'm going to hell. All right, listen, both of you. Janelle, before you go, when's your paper coming out?
I don't know when I'm printing next, but we are launching our first of the eternal weekly email blast on November 1. So we're really going all out with a digital outreach and going to expand our coverage throughout Westchester County, up into Greenwich, Connecticut, and down into the city.
Well, continued good luck. I will be in touch. Stephen Callis, it was a real pleasure to have you.
Same here.
Your fellow geek back there. Please say hello to him, sports geek. Matt Schaefer. He was also a comedian, by the way, for 15 years.
Cool.
So he's got a great
Nice.
background. All right, thank you so very much. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back. This is Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. We'll be back after these words. We have returned, and that is good music. Welcome back to Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. It's time for a segment of the show I know you all love, and as we move forward and have the doctor on, we finally have the technology. We're not going to do it today because I have a lot of stuff to talk with him about, but we will be taking calls at some point, and Lord knows, resurrect a long-beloved show that this man anchored for several years here in Westchester, Politics in Your Health. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Victor Sternberg. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Bob.
It's always good to talk with you. Doctor,
Amen.
So much is going on. By the way, did you publish that piece? I know I'm talking a little bit of out of school, but you wrote a piece earlier in the week, which you were kind enough to preview. Let me preview. It was wonderful, and I don't know if you saw my comments about it.
Yeah, I was very much appreciated your opinion, and no, I'm in the process of deciding how I'm going to share that piece. I think it represents, in today's age, perhaps always did represent an important viewpoint that we neglect as we go forward politically and culturally in our nation.
Well, and folks, it had to do with how it spoke to a book he recently read about intelligence, and intelligence alone and IQ doesn't give you wisdom, number one, and number two, how people get fixed in their positions. But I don't want to give away your article, but I'll say this much, Doctor, if you need access to the local newspapers, I'm sure many would print that. So having said that, two things in the news that have always been near and dear to your heart. Again, and an old friend of mine, Betsy McCarthy, wrote a piece about that one of the biggest expenses, and I don't know if you saw it in one of the newspapers, maybe in the Post, one of the biggest expenses now facing America with respect to healthcare is because of the obesity epidemic. That's
Yes.
number one. Number two, your prophetic soul regarding vaping and opioids. Let's start with obesity.
Well, Bob, it's interesting because I'm teaching now at a dental school, and I walk through the clinic and examine all the patients that the young people are treating. And my first question to every one of them is, do you have any medical conditions, including diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease? And as I go through the day, there's an inordinate number of individuals there that are grossly overweight, that have diabetes, and have hypertension. And this is just a little cross section of a population of our county and of this country. And we've talked about it before, Bob, that nutrition is the least understood area of healthcare in all of medicine. I brought up one day on the radio Dr. Bernstein, who wrote the book on diabetics, and he was very explicit in his book about what not to eat and what to eat. And it's very interesting how we've gone through this revolution in this country. We went from believing in no meat because it was going to cause heart disease, and we replaced that with a carbohydrate diet, which is probably the most dangerous diet to eat long term. And Dr. Bernstein has been a diabetic for 72 years. I asked him, on the radio we were talking, I said, what do you eat for breakfast? And he told me sardines. And I said, that's interesting. So, sardines.
No, I heard it. It doesn't sound like a delicious breakfast anyway, but go ahead.
No, but you know what it is? He understood from the time he became a diabetic, because of checking his own blood sugar, what foods will increase your blood sugar and, in a sense, lead to obesity, and what foods do not. And this whole mystery of nutrition, which is really basically very much politically looked at, because if you speak to people in government about nutrition, about having conversations about what people should eat and not eat, you will not get any reasonable opinions that are evidence-based. So the American public goes about eating foods that they have no clue about, foods that their doctors never discuss with them. Hence, we have an obese society.
Is there a way, what with the marketing as it is, the marketing of foods, the way restaurants are run, the way particularly cereal companies and soda companies prepare their products, is there really any hope? Don't we need a sea change in education?
You know, Bob, in school, when I went to right through dental school, the number of lectures I ever received on nutrition could be given in one afternoon. No, we do need an education, but the problem is it then becomes an issue of how to live your life. And the question is, who's going to tell people what to eat? And yes, there's no doubt about it, Bob, that there's a segment of our population that does count calories, that is very concerned about what to eat. But we live in a society where, as I mentioned before, discipline and knowledge do not run behavior in America.
Unfortunately not. Now, you mentioned some foods he avoided in the morning. Do you know what he was avoiding?
He was avoiding bread and cereal, two of the most common sources of carbohydrates. He would have eggs, and he would have some kind of protein.
Wow. Okay. Let's move on to this vaping. In fact, Doctor, you've done some research on this. I know, again, we're talking with Dr. Victor Sternberg. You know him for his years as the host of Politics and Your Health on several radio stations. We hope to resurrect that here when he's done teaching. Something we'd be honored to do. Doctor, vaping. You've done some homework. I'm kind of shocked that we actually got this far. In other words, how did we allow people to ingest something that the FDA didn't weigh in on? I mean, it's almost like somebody dropped the ball here.
Interesting enough, I mentioned before, earlier in the show, that the FDA is very poor in evaluating devices, whether it be new hips, joints, or screws for the back. They're very, very rigorous in evaluating drugs. So nobody really gave much thought or required long-term studies on how, when you delivered tobacco or other things through an electronic device, how that might differ from just inhaling marijuana in a cigarette or inhaling nicotine. There was no long-term studies. The FDA completely struck out when it came to looking at whether this was going to be harmful. You know, a study like that would have to be done with many, many people over a couple of years.
And with every,
you can prove it.
and would I be correct in saying that every single, I don't know what word to use, flavor or chemical, each one would have to be, I should think, investigated
Absolutely.
separately?
You're ingesting into the body a drug.
I mean, somehow we all thought it was
digesting-
steam. It was just helpless
right.
steam.
And you're injecting it into the part of the body which is extremely sensitive to irritants. The lung tissue is not like the abdomen, where when you swallow a pill, it goes through all kinds of acidic degeneration, and it's got to be digested, and it gets changed as it goes through the digestive system. Here you have a chemical that's going right into the lungs that can have an immediate effect on causing damage to your lung tissue and illness and death immediately, not 20 years later like tobacco might if you smoke a cigarette. So the fact that this had that capability of flooding the lungs with chemicals, and the FDA did not jump up and down, tells you two things. It tells you, number one, the ineptness of government when they should be doing something to protect us on the level of healthcare. And the second is the power of the commercial lobby of tobacco in this country.
And powerful it is. Dr. Victor Sternberg, our guest. Doctor, let's move on to opioids. It seems some companies are coming forward now and admitting their problems and their culpability. I think a lot of them, though, to be fair to them, I think they're just trying to head things off at the pass so that they won't be sued down the road. But where do you think we're headed? Are we going to succeed in moderating the use of these drugs and, more importantly, lessening the numbers of people who are addicted?
Well, it's interesting because as my patients occasionally ask me about getting opioids for dental pain or other pain, and I say I don't use it, they begin to react some and says, well, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We need these drugs. And I tell them about the studies that have been done, and I think it's finally permeating through the consciousness of the health profession. There are numerous studies that have compared opioids to non-opioids in pain relief. And I must tell you that there was never, and this is important for me to tell you, Bob, there was never any evidence supporting opioid use compared to non-opioid drugs such as ibuprofen and Tylenol. The studies that were done were ignored because, again, why would anybody market something that costs pennies, Tylenol and ibuprofen, when you could market narcotics? There was no financial incentive. So as a result, nobody got out there and said, listen, we have a better choice. No company represented ibuprofen and Tylenol. But companies, all these big companies, which paid, as you know, hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars, had an incentive. And the problem, the gatekeeper, who is the gatekeeper? The gatekeeper should be the medical profession. The gatekeeper should be the FDA. And the gatekeeper should be the federal government. We have, with 70,000 people dying in a year, repeatedly, we don't have all kinds of panic going on in the government. It makes, in the article I wrote about why wise smart people are not wise. There are a lot of smart people in government. There's smart people in the FDA. But wisdom is the one factor that's lacking. And in some cases, it is somewhat captured by financial interest. It is the largest scandal. And opioid use and what's happened is the largest health scandal that's ever happened in this country. In my lifetime, and probably ever. And
you know what one of the things I fear is the whiplash. We were talking earlier today, Anthony, one of the callers to your show when you were on, we were talking about your position on opioids, and then when he called in and explained that he was someone that really did need it and blah, 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 and you said, of course, I fear with these kinds of things that we would inadvertently return to the days of old when people didn't get the painkillers they needed, particularly towards the end of life or for chronic pain. Now, apropos of that, before you answer it, did you see the piece, and we wanted you to weigh in on this, the Para-Olympian from, I think it was from Belgium, who took
yes.
her own life because of the degenerative spine disease.
Yes, I read that.
Now, could that pain have are there such, and I'm not questioning her veracity so much as trying to understand, are there such illnesses that the pain is so intractable that no good thing can be done?
Yeah, severe neurological pain can be intractable. And patients like that have to live on probably a morphine drip where they really have to be put into a deep state of pain relief.
Horrible.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, Bob, that one of the most powerful drugs that alleviates pain is intravenous Tylenol.
Is that right?
It's one of the most powerful drugs without any addictive qualities. And the only reason it's not given in the hospital is because it's expensive. And that's another story about why it's expensive.
Tylenol drip is expensive. Who knew?
Tylenol intravenously is a very expensive liquid to administer for reasons I do not understand.
But we see some drugs, like you'll see it on the bottle. If you get a generic, it'll say like Tylenol and codeine. They'll put them together.
Right. But this is Tylenol is inordinately expensive when given through a liquid into your vein.
Wow.
But it is a very powerful drug that does not addict. And why it's not used more again is another question we should address.
You know, Dr. Nax, I'd like to grind with you because, let's face it, you're a go-to guy and you always talk about how politics is affected by it, but also the development of new medicines, cures, etc. Something that's always stuck, and I think the very first show we ever did together 5-6 years ago, this came up. I am still amazed that in this day and age, we don't have a less invasive way to know about blockages. Far too many people die suddenly from heart attacks. It seems to me don't have to. Why not? With all the technology we have, how come we haven't solved this?
Well, we do have a way of doing it, and for some reason it's not gone mainstream, and insurance companies don't cover it. It is the virtual angiogram, which has the ability to look at your arteries through an X-ray. Now, one of the problems with it does have some radiation, number one. Number two, it is not generally covered by insurance. So as a result, people don't seek it on their own. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the test, I think, is about $1,000.
Yeah, it is.
And the beauty of this non-invasive procedure is that it does have some false positives, meaning they'll find something that's not there, but it never misses something that is there. So if you have that test and it shows that you have blockage in your arteries, that will be a definite something you want to explore without going to an angiogram, which costs thousands of dollars. And it should be, again, I was in the office yesterday and a patient told me she had recently had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. I said, have you had EKGs? He said, yes, I had EKGs. I have one every year. I said, did you have a stress test? Yes, I had a stress test, and I came back normal. And then the other day, I had terrible pain, and I went to the hospital, and two of my arteries were 100% blocked.
Good grief.
And she fortunately survived, got 2 stents.
What is
that? This woman is at...
Go ahead, doctor. No, go ahead, doctor.
So it's an example. One of the problems with electrocardiograms, they can be up to 50% inaccurate. In other words, 50% of the time it says you're fine and you're not. Even stress tests can have about a 30% inaccuracy. So we have people who are being missed with all the horrible outcomes that could be picked up by a virtual angiogram. And I would suggest to some of you in the audience who have any concerns that you inquire about a virtual angiogram. It'll either give you a sense of peace of mind, or it will get you to somebody quickly before you have a heart attack.
I had one once. It's the Princeton Longevity Center. I don't know that it was what you're describing. It was 10 years ago now. It measured the amount of calcium in your arteries.
Right. It measured it. Yeah. The deposits of calcium are often indicative mm-hmm. of the blockage you may have in your heart. So it's an important measure of heart disease that's not picked up by an EKG.
Because I always think of someone like the guy that played Tony Soprano, Gandolfini,
oh, yes.
51 years old, overweight, had the classic build for a guy that might have a problem. It would seem to me that if someone had sent him for, and I'm going to go right to the top, an angiogram, this wouldn't have happened. I mean, I understand that the occlusion, when it happens, something breaks away from an injured part of the artery, but I would think that if you have wider artery, again, I don't know the relationship between that and the blockage, whether it's, carrot or what is it, the chicken or egg. Is it that thing that broke off, and would it not break off if you had a stent in? I don't know how that works.
Well, it doesn't occur without some degree of atherosclerosis that can be picked up with an X-ray.
Well,
it's a rare person. There are cases where people get a clot that travels from from a vein in their leg and go to the heart and give them a heart attack, or go to their brain and give them a stroke. But those are the infrequent causes of death, not the frequent ones.
We're talking with Dr. Victor Sternberg. You do recall, of course, his show, Politics in Your Health. Believe me, now the doctor can't make any commitments yet, but he knows how much I want him back to do that show. In fact, we've even gotten the equipment necessary to take your calls, and many of them when he is. Doctor, in terms of what's down the pike, we heard in the papers recently they may have a new drug now for Alzheimer's. There seems to be a lot of focus on it. Cancer research now is focusing more and more on getting proteins that identify the nasty cells. Where are we with those things, do you think?
As far as the drug for Alzheimer's, right now they think that drug may have some value for people with a certain genetic marker, and I do not know what percentage of the population has that. And it also indicated it may slow down the progression, but it may not reverse the progression of the disease. I think, Bob, when it comes to the neurological system, our neurological systems, we're a long way from meaningful change. The neurological system of humans are so complicated and so difficult to unravel when there's a problem that I think it may be a long time into the future till we figure out how to deal with this issue, because it's very multifactorial. There may be more than just one issue that's causing this problem. So as far as Alzheimer's go, as tragic as it is, I don't see anything that's clearly a smoking gun that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
As far as cancer goes, we're still, even with all of this designer drugs and all of this genetic testing, there's a very small percentage of people today that are being meaningfully cured or put into remissions. It does happen, and it's very notable and very, very heartening. But we still are trying to understand how to make the human body fight effectively against this invader, which is really coming from ourselves. So I would say in both cases, Bob, remember in 1970 that Nixon said the war on cancer in the next 20 years will cure the disease.
50 years ago, I remember it like it was yesterday.
So here we are, almost 50 years later. So I would say, the best thing you can do is watch what you put in your mouth, get exercise, get regular exams, and just, don't cause your own demise. Smoking, vaping, or obesity, the things you can control in your life. If all of us would be very careful about those things, probably there's an estimate that over 50 to 60% of the diseases that we get can be prevented not by drugs, not by new miracle products, by what we do personally.
Now, folks, before we let the doctor go, he's a periodontist by trade, but has dedicated his life to prevention, as you know, and his radio work, his media work, his writing, dedicated to that. Now, doctor, you, like people who write and do radio, things you read, things you see, things in your practice you observe, and your reactions become part of that art. Have you seen anything lately that's been sticking in your craw that you want to talk about before we go?
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. If we have a moment.
Yes.
A good friend of mine is facing a horrific decision about removing his leg from cancer.
Oh.
And it's going to be removed at the level of his hip. However, let me go back in history. 25 years ago, he had cancer of his lower leg. And a very famous institution decided they would offer to give him a prosthesis, a metal rod to replace. Rather than take his leg out, they would take the bone out and put a metal rod in. Well, because of that decision, the last 25 years, this gentleman has suffered, had 12 surgeries on his leg, spent millions of dollars on healthcare costs, and is about to lose his leg because he has a recurrence of the cancer. And what I've learned and what I've expressed to him is that the original procedure to put this rod in his leg was never evidence-based. that it was going to make a long-term difference and make him more mobile, because he's not mobile at all. And it's an example of what, when we don't apply evidence-based long-term studies and just insert things into the human body, there's going to be a fallout and a shakeout. And unfortunately for this man, it may be fatal for him.
He would have been better off losing the leg. Where was the cancer? But he would have been better off losing the leg then and learning a prosthetic since, although up to the hip is pretty tough to do even now, I guess.
Bob, you know what? Let me tell you what would have happened. They would have taken it off right above the knee.
Mm-hmm.
He would have had a prosthesis for 25 years. He would never have to stop practicing. He would have avoided 12 surgeries and possibly his death. And over $3 million in healthcare costs.
You know what?
So,
I'm sorry. Do you know what resonates from this story, though, Doctor? 25 years later, the cancer comes back. It makes you wonder, what is it in the human body? Why did it lay dormant? That's interesting.
Well, Bob, cancer is a disease we do not understand. And although we have all kinds of amazing methods to cut it out, to radiate it and give it chemicals, we still don't understand, as you said, the great mystery malady of all is cancer.
It really is. I told you, I read this one book 20-some-odd years ago, and I still remember the first chapter like it was yesterday. Dr. Rosenberg, who I think still works at the National Institute of Health. The book's called The Transformed Cell. And he got into the study of cancer, and he's done a lot, particularly immunologically. And in the first chapter, he's a resident, and he was assigned to emergency room duty, blah, blah, blah. Guy comes in with, and I forget the subtype, but he came in with cancer, metastatic, his whole body. They sent him home with a painkiller and 3 months to live. And about 6 or 7 weeks later, they had set up to come back, and he came back, and the cancer was gone. They do not, as we talk here today, I'm sure they don't know why. And that's what inspired him, that if it can be fixed, if that can happen, there has to be some trigger we just don't know about. But I always found that to be fascinating.
Yeah, that's it. Also there have been anecdotal stories of people having metastatic cancer, developing a serious infection, a bacterial infection, and when they got cured from the infection, the cancer was gone. The immune system somehow was kicked in at a level that was able to kill the cancer cells. So this is the great mystery of life, but not so much of how to cure disease. It's why we don't get sick. Why are you and I not currently having cancer? What's going on in our bodies that's keeping us from getting cancer? Whereas people are dying at young ages that didn't have the good fortune. And the good fortune, we don't know what that good fortune is.
No. Well, and choices.
We don't have cancer.
It was the 17th of October a few days ago, and it was the 42 years since I quit smoking. I bet you I'm playing with house money. If I kept smoking 3 packs a day, as I was in 1977, I'm sure I wouldn't be here now. So that's one part of it, and luck. And Doctor, one last question apropos of this. I finished a book about Genghis Khan the other day. It's a terrific book about how they brought modern society, believe it or not, Genghis Khan did, to Asia. Anyway, those people lived, unless they were kings and well-tended, if they lived to 35, 40, and that's in the 12th, 13th century, we're living now at 80 is a fair plug for us, 80, 85. Where do you think we're headed with that? There's probably a limit because unless they figure out how to deal with telomeres, but where do you think we're headed? Do you think my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren will live to be 120?
It might be, but Bob, the issue is going to be, I see the aging population in my practice. I have 600 people over 80, and I have 70 patients over 90. And there is, unfortunately for many of them, they may be living longer, but they're not thriving longer.
No.
And I think the question of longevity, just remember those people who died in the Middle Ages.
Yes.
The average age in England, in London, in 1500 was 30 years, was because primarily they died of infectious diseases that no longer kill us. So if you get past the infectious disease cause of death, then you pick up the other causes that we could only have, cancer and heart disease. And people didn't develop those diseases because they didn't live long enough to get them. A lot of the diseases we're getting are having to do with longevity.
Yeah.
People didn't get Alzheimer's because they didn't live to 70 years old or 65 years old. So there may be a biological clock that'll keep ticking. The question is, how are we going to keep people vital and functional and having worthwhile lives when they're 70, 80, and 90? And if the answer is we can't, then are we really going to have an issue that will just have more people that have morbidities that we have to care for, rather than a vital older society? And these are tough questions to answer.
Doctor, as always, it is a mental treat to have you with us. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again next week. How's your teaching going?
Bob, I want to talk more about the beauty of the young mind and the beauty of people from around the world coming together to work as a team. My school is a microcosm of integration and multicultural joy, watching people who are completely come from different origins come together and make it happen. I'll talk more about it another time.
It's so much fun to watch people learn. You know, I almost wish I could have another life just to go back to school and learn all kinds of stuff. Doctor, thank you very much. Dr. Victor Sternberg, when he's done teaching or gets a new schedule, you'll be hearing a lot more from him. Dr. Victor Sternberg, thank you very much. How can people, if they want your services, get a hold of you?
All of the things I wrote that I shared with you, Bob, will be published on my website called Doctor Save My Teeth. I'd urge you to look at some of the things we've written about, not only about healthcare, but about dental care and how to, as I said in the article and said in my website, Doctor Save My Teeth is also about Doctor Save My Life.
Doctor, thank you so very much. It's always great to talk with you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much. Dr. Victor Sternberg, we are going to spend a little bit of time talking sports. Got my sports guy back, our football pick guy back, and our guests came in late before, so we deferred to them to get them on. They traveled here. And I didn't get a chance to talk with Jake about a couple of things that are probably on your mind and that he loves to weigh in on. First of all, Jake, before we get to the World Series, which I guess continues tonight.
Yes,
Oops, sorry. Let me get the mic up. What did you think of Girardi signing with the Phillies, and what do you think the Mets' problem is?
Well,
Do they want a stooge?
Yeah, the GM wants a stooge that he will have complete control over, I believe, and he would have not had that with Joe Girardi.
What's in fact,
Great hire for the Phillies, though.
What?
I think it's a great hire.
It's a
for
great
the
hire
Phillies.
for the Phillies.
And the Mets have to face him 19 times a year.
Yeah. Well, he lives up here in Harrison, you know. He still lives in Harrison, does Joe
I didn't know
Girardi,
that.
so I don't know if I guess he'll move down there, but his kids, it's not far enough where his kids, you know, don't have to get out of school and stuff, which is a good thing. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about this because hockey, I'm so embedded in it. You know, I know how the management works and the different coaching strategies and theories. I have more insight into it. I don't in baseball. There seems to be, at least from what I've read, this dynamic that the GMs want to really make the decisions even on the field. And so now that they're traveling with the team and that it's almost like an executive officer on an aircraft carrier, on a ship, they want the XO to execute it, but they make the decision. Is that fair? Fair enough.
Well, it really depends what kind of a manager you are. I know a lot of the GMs want to have a say in the starting lineups, and they want it all analytics. And you think Buck Showalter would put up with that?
No, nor should they. I mean, that's like having a computer run your ball club.
Yeah, that's why the Mets passed on Girardi.
I'm sure.
You know, I think the Yankees, to an extent, are like that as well. I don't think Boone has complete control.
I don't sense that he does either, but he seems to be enough of a veteran of baseball. I think eventually he's going to become one of those managers. I think he's too much a baseball guy not to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Does it work?
Analytics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly?
I think so, yeah.
But can you run a whole game on analytics?
Oh, I think so.
So why not have both? Why not, as we do in the executive world, have a Joe Girardi have an analytics guy on his staff? You know, you could be like, if you were an analytics guy, he might turn to you and say, Jake, what's the story with this guy? How many hits does he get on him versus blah, 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 blah. But weave that into decision making. Why not do it that way?
I think Brody wants, he wants it to be his team. He wants it to be his, I won't say stooge, but his guy who's going to listen to him. They're going to
Why not re-engineer the positions yet? Why don't they simply make him or that kind of man the manager and let the GM become the business guy? See what you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, maybe they just need to divide the responsibilities differently.
I think the Yankees have it. I think Cashman is very good, and I think Boone's very good, and I think the Yankees have a nice...
They have a nice balance.
Yeah.
I was not aware. The biggest surprise to me was that Carlos Beltran is well respected. I thought he was... I always got the impression towards the end of his career that he was a malingerer, that they were glad to see him go. Since when did he become the second coming of Walter Alston?
He's kind of put in his time, I think. He's
What's he doing?
He's a bench coach. He's
Where?
He was with the Yankees, wasn't he?
Yeah, I wasn't aware that Beltran was a bench coach.
And he's kind of put in his time, and I guess he's impressed in his interviews. So I think he's got a shot. They say there's a surprise out there, that there might be a surprise candidate that no one knows about. A lot of rumblings as to who that might be.
Do you have any idea who it might be?
No idea.
All right, let's move on then to the World Series. How shocked are
I'm
you?
very shocked.
12 runs.
I can't. Yeah, I
against
mean,
top pitchers.
If the Nats pull it out tonight, I can't see them not winning at all. You still got to go through Scherzer and Strasburg. They're not pitching tonight. Tonight will be interesting. The Astros have Greinke going, and I just think Greinke's a head case.
You've said that. You don't think he's good in big games, even though he wins during the season.
Yeah, he's good. He's great in the regular season, but we'll see tonight.
But hitting still matters, obviously, and 2-1. If we had a baseball pick in the week, who's going to win the World Series?
I think if the Nats win tonight, the Nats will win the World Series, but I still think it's a coin flip.
Okay, well, that's fair because they are very much the underdog. I read the other day 2 things. Are you familiar with the incident that has resulted today? The assistant general manager of Houston was fired. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
Well, he should have been.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Well, the Astros closer was suspended for
75 games. Yeah, but he was with Toronto at the time.
Girlfriend or his...
Whatever, his domestic partner.
Yeah. And he closed out to get to the World Series, he closed out the game, and I guess this exec kind of rubbed it in a couple females' faces that he had pitched so well, and they had, they didn't want the Astros to take a shot on him. And so he was kind of...
Why would he do that?
Well, he's gone now.
Yeah. I mean, you get the person on the side and you say, hey, he did a pretty good job. Cut him some slack. There's no need to spike the ball like that.
Yeah, and he definitely did. And it was caught on tape, too.
And Houston's, they came out with a press release today saying that they apologize if they came off as not caring. They really care. I don't think they cared until they got burned.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm now rooting for Washington. By the way, the manager was the only one that out of the box said this is unacceptable. Because, again, a real manager wants to manage the clubhouse and what his players do. The other thing I read coming out of the commissioner's office, they're actually looking at the balls. They're actually having scientists, although it shouldn't be paid for by baseball. They should have somebody outside baseball do it. I'm always going to believe that the balls were juiced. Did you know how I feel about it? I don't have a great respect for the people that run baseball.
I agree.
Hockey used to be worse, a little better now, but hockey was the worst. Hockey had, and I always say that because people identify with hockey and they think I'm always praising it. Did you know, did you ever hear of a guy by the name of Doug Harvey?
Doug Harvey,
okay,
baseball player?
He was the greatest defenseman before Bobby Orr.
Okay.
He died in a railroad car. The Rangers had a great goal scorer called Camille Henry. He died eating cat food. The NHL and their pension once ripped off the players themselves. They were the absolute worst. That's why anything any hockey player ever gets, they make $10 million a year now. Good for them. Those people ran it. They were like slaves. Only 6 teams. They'd say, hey, you want to go to the I? The I was like 3 levels down. They would send you to the minors and bury you there for the rest of your life. It was just horrible. So anyway, anything else on your mind? You've been looking at the pages like you may change your mind. What's bugging you?
No, I was just looking at your hockey television schedule for the weekend. You've got the Devils tonight. You've got the Islanders tonight.
The Islanders impressed me.
And you got the Blues and the Bruins tomorrow on NBC Sports.
Ah,
you got a doubleheader on NBC Sports.
I love
Blues
that
and the
one.
Bruins, and then the Flames and the Jets.
And by the way, my boy Brian Boyle got signed. My grandson and I have been arguing that he would get another gig. He's one of the best character players in the game, and I don't mean character as a tough guy, just good in the locker room. He's played in the finals a couple of times. The Devils should not have gotten rid of him. He was really key to all the young players. Anyway, I want to thank you. Good picks today. Now Monday, folks, at 8:50, we will go over his results. And by the way, next week, what we want you to look forward to is we will be taking the mic out onto the platform and see who people are voting for. Remember, early voting begins tomorrow. Today's program was brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, and also now Aging Issues Radio, our first podcasted show. Many more to come. The law firm of Pena and Khan, Dominic Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. You can come here, call us at 914-727-2726, 727-2726, and we'll share that experience with you during the evenings, or if we'll take it out to your party, your bar mitzvah, your wedding, or whatever it is, we'll take it to you. Again, 914-727-2726. It's 49 degrees. Going to get up to 75, 65, maybe even 70 today, but it is cloudy. Without some sunshine, that's not going to happen. Tonight, we will get down to the upper 40s. Tomorrow, more clouds, but still some sunshine as well. Temperatures getting up around 60. That slams the lid on things for today. Thank you very much for listening. And again, we did not do a long-form interview today because, well, we got stood up, and it happens during this political season. We did not get it, but we didn't get a second confirmation, so we weren't so stood up that way. But then again, this is the same guy, Andre Wallace, that missed the TV debate. It was late for that. It's the way they roll in Mount Vernon. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. We will see you on Monday morning.